Regions Bank.
And we're off and running on a Monday. We're in a new month, by the way. It's December. How did we get to December? Seems like it was August, just 3 months ago. Anyway, the Iron Bowl has come and gone, and living up to expectations doesn't really do it justice. It may have been the greatest Iron Bowl in history, and that's saying quite a lot. Thank you. Gus Malzahn's trick play outsmarts the GOAT and wins the Iron Bowl. Somehow you were in a cave over the weekend? Check it out.
I gotta push through the pain before I get back up again. 'Cause the battle's won, but the war goes on. But the war goes on.
Intercepted down the sideline. Touchdown, Auburn!
The war goes on.
Allen puts Bama back in the lead. He's into the end zone. Shivers just ran through a man.
The war goes on.
Gets the upright. This was over. This was over.
And listen, we have guests. We have plenty of analysis, but one thing that has made this show whatever it is to you are the callers. And we want to spend plenty of time on that subject today. And we'll start right now. We go to Rob, who is in Georgia, and you are first up. Good afternoon. Rob, you there? I don't know if that's a good harbinger of things to come or not. When the first call on the day goes haywire, Tony is now the first caller of the day, even though he's the second name I called out. Tony, you're on the air.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, how you doing today, sir?
We're doing great, thank you.
Thank you for taking my call. First and foremost, excuse me, condolences to all of the Auburn University family, and especially to the Sullivans. I remember seeing Pat and Terry Beasley. I'm sure you remember the name.
Of course.
Back in the 70s, and gave my Crimson Tide plenty of fits. So blessings to the Sullivan family.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So Paul, plenty of talk going around. Going to just get right to it. I'm going to ask you one simple question. And myself, good friend of mine down in Dothan, Alabama, think part of the problem in Tuscaloosa has to be specifically on defense. Everybody knows that. Forget the decimation of the injuries and all that. But my question is this, Paul. Is Pete Golden the man?
No, listen, I can't answer that question. All I can answer is what I hear. And if you had to make one prediction about Nick Saban, when things don't go well, whether it's his fault or someone else's, and I know he will make a change.
Yeah. Well, here's my thesis on this whole subject. Remember back last year when we had a healthy Dylan Moses and a very good Mac Wilson? The latter half of 2018, Golden was calling most of those plays.
Well, listen, for those who don't remember, Golden had to take over because Tosh LaPoy was pretty much deep six midway through the season. I thought he did a good job. But I don't want to spend the whole day talking about what Alabama didn't have and all the injuries. Every team in college football had serious injuries. Alabama had its share, as we all know about. It just seems like when Alabama has them, the Tide is unique. Nobody else is unique but Alabama. Anyway, let's keep moving. We'll try Rob again. Rob, second time go around. You're on.
Excuse my tardiness, Paul. I had a employee call me. Excuse me. I wanted to touch on two topics with you. First one being I called you a few weeks ago asking how in the world was Alabama ever going to make the playoffs. You said you didn't see it, and here we are. Your season's over. Now, with that being said, moving to Gus, had you talked to Auburn fans Friday, Saturday morning, I'd say 60-40 wanted him to be fired. Well, now, because he's magically won this game, the feelings are changing, it seems. But without a missed kick and 2 pick sixes, you lost the game, Gus.
Hey, Rob, let me stop you for a second, okay? First of all, I think your numbers are a little low. I stayed in Auburn on Friday night, and at the hotel I was at, which was the main hotel in Auburn, I didn't run into any Auburn fat cats. I'm not talking about idle fans. I'm talking about the people that control the influence, who wanted him to stay. Gus Malzahn just keeps winning in spite of his lack of support from the people, not the average fans. I think the Auburn fans have supported Malzahn. I'm talking about the power brokers. They have not supported Malzahn.
Yeah. Now, if you do keep him, what do you think the chances are of getting Chad Morris as your OC next season?
Well, listen, I can't imagine Gus Malzahn wanting to leave now. I mean, he's just done the unthinkable. I don't have any idea where Chad Morris is going to end up. Now, the question is, does Gus Malzahn really want Chad Morris in there to call the plays when it's his offense? I don't know about that one, but I mean, I think it's a blank slate right now, but I don't think anyone's going to tell Gus Malzahn what he needs to do after beating Nick Saban 2 out of the last 3 years. Ryan is in Starkville, Mississippi. Ryan.
Paul, thanks for my call, man. What do you think about Morit's comments about the fan base on Friday morning?
You know, listen, I think you should win or lose with the same modicum of class. I've never been a big believer in calling out the people that support you and pay your bill. That would be like me going crazy here today because some callers were not there when I went to them and blame you for what somebody else didn't do. I wasn't crazy about it, but again, nobody in Starkville really cares what I think.
Right, and that the guy not had the penalty in his zone for Ole Miss to win the game, the story might have been a lot.
Well, listen, Matt Luke got fired because of what happened at the end of that game. I don't have any doubt about that. He was a popular guy. Everyone loved him. 4-8, 5-7, and then one of his players does something stupid, and he supports his player as opposed to calling him out. And the next thing you know, he's unemployed.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Paul. Look forward to a good show.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from you. Vinny. Always trust a man named Vinny on a Monday afternoon. Vinny, what's up?
Paul, Vinny Bowles here from Huntsville, Alabama. How are you,
Oh, my
sir?
goodness. General, how are you doing?
Paul, I'm doing very well. Things are well, and how are things with you?
Vinny, they're doing great. And for those who don't know, this is a very distinguished retired general on the phone here. One with whom I've had the honor of making acquaintance in Huntsville, and it is always great to talk to you.
Paul, I was interested. We've talked about leadership several times and everything else, and I'd be interested. There's been a lot of talk about injuries for Alabama and Auburn and everything else, and I wonder with the recent Alabama experience, do you think it might be time for Coach Saban to look at arresting the revolving door he seems to have on analysts and assistant coaches and try to get some stability in there, and perhaps that might be an asset for him?
You know, General, I think that's a really interesting idea. Just because you understand more about leadership than I ever have, because you commanded a large number of forces and troops, and to me, sometimes you can have too many toys. I know you understand what I'm talking about there. And I think the biggest issue at Alabama has been the personnel on the staff, not on the field.
Well, there has been a lot of revolving, and especially not just revolving, but they come for a year, leave. I mean, Sarkisian, I think, has been there 2 years, was an analyst, then an assistant. Daboll left very, very quickly as well. And that churn, can, in the mind of players, they start wondering where's the consistency? What do we
you know what's interesting? I talked to someone recently, I'm not going to identify where, or it was someone in the high school world, and there was a player at this individual school, and the revolving door of people that came to recruit one player was 3 or 4 different people, where other coaches are coming in with one man assigned to him and then the head coach, and that shows the breakdown, and I don't think you can survive for long with the kind of discontinuity that Saban has. And I mean, you have to, and I want you to explain this better than I can. You have to be able to rely on the people that support you.
Well, you have to rely on the people who support you, and as importantly, that requires that the people that are working with you, you and them have to have a mind meld about how things operate. They have to be inside your head and know what the bounds are, know what's acceptable, not acceptable, and know what your intent is. And I think if that churn's going on, it takes a while to build that.
Well, no doubt. Listen, let's reconnect soon and get you on here to expound on some of these subjects.
Listen, I'll look forward to it. And right now, the only thing for an Army successful season is you better beat Navy, because we darn sure couldn't beat Hawaii.
Spoken like a true general. Thank you, General. Always great to talk to you.
Paul, all the best.
You bet. I had the opportunity. General Bowles has written. He's a great lecturer up in Huntsville, and just an incredibly respected and decorated Army general. And yeah, you better beat Navy. That's the most important thing. We'll take a break. More to come. Off to a good start here. Postseason begins on next Monday. Guys, what about it?
It's a special edition.
Let's just start off with this lemon here. All right, a little low-hanging fruit. Bama will never make it to the top again under Saban.
Oh, my
low-hanging fruit or truth?
I think that's let me think about it for a second. Low-hanging fruit.
Okay, low-hanging fruit.
That's low. That's low. That's an overreaction. Come on. I'm going to take the sour grapes, and you may notice a theme as we go through some of these. Harbaugh will never beat Ohio State. Low-hanging fruit.
I would bet my life on that being true. He will be, when he retires, he'll be 0-97 against Ohio State.
He's Michigan's John Cooper.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take this apple here and see what this one has. There's a bunch of nevers in here, and FSU will never be among the nation's elite.
I think that's low-hanging fruit. I think they could get the right coach like Brian Kelly, and they'll be back.
Got him.
All right.
Our latest never, as I sample this orange here. The Big 12 will never win the CFP in its current format.
That's 100% true. I mean, they will get to the playoffs every year and lose in the first round every year.
Yeah, how much would Baylor lose by to any of the three schools they're definitely in?
Wow, that's
40.
Yeah.
I mean, almost anyone in that 4 spot would be in that position.
All right, I'll take the banana. Normally leave Nature's Candy Bar for you, but took it here. Dabo will never stop complaining.
That's
low-hanging fruit or truth.
I mean, Dabo is somebody just needs to give Dabo a pacifier and send him to timeout until the end of the college football season. I'm really getting sick of his whining.
All right.
Yeah, they don't want us to finish this segment. But we're going to anyway. The Egg Bowl will never have a normal ending.
No, the Egg Bowl is the greatest reality show in college football. Welcome back. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. Doug is in South Carolina, where they had a little football game on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, we had a little one. Talking about a great football game. Wasn't that Iron Bowl tremendous?
It was.
Yeah, you know, the only thing that got me about the thing is even Danielson was talking about it. It takes an average of 3 seconds to kick a field goal, and that's the longest 3 1-second average.
Yeah, but the one thing I remember, I heard that, but let's go back to 2013 for a second, okay?
All right.
Does anyone remember that time ran out and then Nick Saban wanted 1 second put back on the clock? Remember?
Yeah, I remember that. And
how is that 1 second different than the 1 second on Saturday?
Not really. Not really. I mean, I know.
I didn't hear Saban saying, "Let's put 1 second back," even though there's no way to get a playoff in 1 second. Same guy, opposite side of the field.
That's true. That's true. I didn't think of it like that.
Well, you know what? I didn't either. My wife came up with that one.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to her. She asked me Sunday when I got back in town. She said was talking about. I said, well, they really shouldn't have had that. They shouldn't have gotten the field goal off because Saban said. And she goes, well, what did Saban say 6 years ago? Saban says.
That's true.
Anyway, not to be a lawyer here.
Well, talking about the game Saturday, I'm not going to say nothing about what happened in Columbia, except I guess Cat Daddy's going to have to spread around a lot of Pall Mall moonshine for them to kill their sorrows. But one thing I will say.
Listen, let's give South Carolina some credit, okay? They scored.
Yeah, they did score. Let me tell you this, though. Muschamp was on his post-game show, and he made the understatement of the year. He said he had a lot of work to do.
Really?
That's what he said. He said
well, Muschamp said it. And by the way, I want to thank my administration for so screwing up all the statements about my future that I'm able to slip in here for at least another year until the buyout goes down.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, now you think about this. If ESPN told you they'd give you an $18.2 million buyout, you'd probably say, good, y'all can have my show, and I'll watch y'all from TV next year.
They've tried to run me off for a lot less, I can assure you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, if you're Will Muschamp, you just don't care anymore. Why would you care?
You don't have to.
No,
$18.2 million. You can do pretty much what you want.
Yeah, you're gonna get your annual beating by Clemson. You win 4 games, and your president and AD says you're doing good.
Yeah.
It's like me coming in here every day and just kick my feet up and hey, let's open a 6-pack and watch Andy Griffith on one of the 6 TVs we have here, or 8.
Yeah, your buyout would come real quick, wouldn't it?
My buyout's coming. I've heard the rumor mill. Greg is up next in Athens. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I heard your conversation with General Bowles, and I actually got to meet him in Athens a couple of years ago. He spoke in an event. And
he is a great man.
He's a great speaker and well-versed. And, you know, when you guys were doing the coaches' meetings in the spring or early summer, you got to have him and Kit Smithsmeyer down there and talk about
You're right.
leadership and how it relates to life and sport. And, back before the season started, you asked me on the show what I thought would be Alabama's toughest game, and I told you Auburn. And if you'd have told me Friday that Bama would have scored 45 points, then I would think that would equate to a win. And, of course, that didn't happen. So they're going to have to reevaluate. And I just don't think since Jeremy Pruitt's been gone, Paul, that the defense has looked anywhere near what it has been the previous 10 years that he's been there.
No, you're right. And listen, I mean, whether Nick Saban likes it or not, whether Alabama fans like it or not, there's going to be a lot of evaluation of what went wrong, and there should be, especially, Greg, when Saban, after the season ended last year, did the "we're going to get the Alabama factor back." I mean, what's his cliche going to be this year?
Well, it obviously didn't happen, and when you say you're going to do something and it doesn't happen, then you have to start with yourself first.
And Greg, this is the first time it has not happened. At the end of 13, he swore things would be different, and they were. Alabama got back to the playoffs, and really had a good chance against Ohio State and threw the game away. But I don't know what he says now because he's out recruiting right now, and what he has to do first is try to tone down the negativity, which is everywhere. Listen. Sunday morning, I was up in Connecticut after I left Auburn, and I do Sports Center there every Sunday morning, and usually the biggest college game of the day gets about 3 minutes. Greg, this game got 15 straight minutes on the most influential sports network in the world and by the way, and it still wasn't enough time to get everything in.
No, it's going to be something they're going to have to deal with moving forward, and he still has a bowl game somewhere that he needs to do well in.
Good luck. And right now I've heard it's probably the Cotton Bowl or the Citrus Bowl. Good luck getting his players fired up to play in that one.
Well, he's got to do. I don't know what he has to do other than he's got to equate some kind of change now. Because it's going to affect his recruiting if he doesn't get this wrapped around his finger.
He's in a tough spot, but listen, he's the greatest coach of all time for a reason. He failed, and listen, I know Alabama fans don't want to hear that he failed. I heard one Alabama fan say today, "Well, if Auburn thinks it's a big deal that they beat our backup quarterback, then good luck to them." I'm thinking, really? That backup quarterback was at Alabama when their starting quarterback was in the 10th grade. That's not going to get you ahead. But what's going to get us ahead is to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk. Okay, time to get on the Gus bus. Enough of this criticism. He's had 3 wins against Saban. Top 10, 7 years. He's done okay. And he's kept the Waffle House in business.
I mean, Paul, you look at that resume, and you'd really be hard-pressed to believe that this is someone who is under fire for his job seemingly every single season. I mean, that's a pretty incredible track record.
That can be summed up in 2 words. It's Auburn.
Yeah.
Right. You just happen to be in the same state as the greatest coach in modern college football history, who's your biggest rival, right? But to have 3 wins versus this coach, to have your team in the top 10 perennially, I mean, look, they lost 3 games this year, and they're the 11th ranked team in the country because they play such a tough schedule.
Yeah.
So
been to a national title game.
Right.
Should have won it.
We just got to get Coach Malzahn some love.
Do you think if they had won that title against Florida State, things would be different in the ensuing years as far as the perception?
It's amazing what a national championship will do for you. Look at Larry Coker.
Yeah, good point.
Where is he? Didn't he just get fired from like UT San Antonio or something?
Wow.
That was somebody else, but he did get fired there.
Right. He was there. That's where he ended up there. I mean, but to have this success, I mean, the last minute of the game, Paul, I mean, he outcoached Saban with a minute to go by tricking and putting the punter and having all
on
of
the
that.
field was pretty
that was a bad look for the GOAT.
Yeah, but that alone would, as an Auburn, if I were a huge Auburn fan, I'd sit there and say, you know what? I think you said it.
You know what I heard after the game? That was just not fair.
Right. No, but that shouldn't be
it's not fair.
The narrative. The narrative should be that he outcoached him.
The officials should have let us rearrange our personnel because we're Alabama.
Right. Yeah. And maybe they should be letting you know what the play calls are in advance also to give you a better chance to defend against them, right? I mean, wouldn't that only be fair?
I think from now on, Alabama's going to refuse to go to Auburn. That's just the
game's back.
We will not play them there anymore.
Right. Legion Field, it's time for your makeover for sure.
Alabama 0-7 versus ranked Auburn teams.
Why do you have to make such a big deal about that?
In Auburn.
Great stats.
Okay, welcome back to the program. There's nobody I'd rather talk to after an Iron Bowl than our next guest, the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Pat Dye. Coach, first of all, good afternoon. Hope all is well. I know the last couple of weeks have been up and down for everybody, but especially you health-wise, but I hope you're feeling better.
Well, I got an issue that I have to deal with, and that's what we're doing. It's just getting old ain't for sissies, Paul.
Well, before we get into the game, I do want to ask you about someone that served under you and really is the embodiment of Auburn football. That's Pat Dye, who passed away. Pat Sullivan, who passed away.
Well, Pat was an icon at Auburn. You put him in the same category with a Bo Jackson, a Charles Barkley, as far as an athlete and somebody that he touched the whole Auburn family, and he's just such he had the it factor. He had the it factor on the football field when he was playing, and he was just one of those guys that's got a magical personality, and everybody loved him, and he loved everybody. I mean, it was and that all bundled into a man that was highly, highly competitive, and just a great guy. And I know you've already said it, but my prayers and love goes to Gene and the family and all of his friends and the Auburn family itself, because we're all grieving about it. Well, and so just one of those things that we faced. If you live long enough, you have to go through some of these times, and we in one of them. Right. And he comes right on the heels of probably one of the greatest wins in Auburn football history.
Yeah, and I want to. Yeah, I mean, I want to ask you about that, and certainly I appreciate what you said about Coach Sullivan. I mean, you've been part of epic Iron Bowls. I didn't think I'd ever see anything quite like some of the ones that you took place in, but it seems like every couple of years we get one that tops the other one. But Coach, have you ever seen anything like this one.
No. And Paul, it was 10 league changes. And you know, the most points we had given up in a ball game this year, I think, was in the 20s. And we give up 45 points Saturday. And, you know, the same thing probably true about Alabama, because we score 48 and you don't score. I think that's the most points that's ever been scored against Nick.
Yes, that is correct.
Alabama. And it was a crazy game, but a great football game. And, you know, the ebb and flow of the game from one side to the other. And Alabama's got a good football team. And, you know, it was just as a classic, and one that people will remember forever. You know, and that it changes the dynamics at Alabama, but it also changes the dynamics at Auburn, because we want to go to a good bowl game, and we deserve to go to a good bowl game. All you have to do is look at our resume, and from a standpoint, now I know we lost 3 games, but that being said, we also beat some great football teams along the way, and it's an exciting football team, and one that deserves to go to, like I said, to a major bowl, and of course Alabama's sitting there with a record that's actually better than ours, but we just got through beating them. Here's an interesting thing: the cumulative record at Auburn, we're number 2 nationally, winning 86 and losing 46. And Alabama is 98. They've won 66 and lost 66. Now, which one did you rather have as a bowl team? Huh?
That's true. No, it's a good point.
I think Alabama's beaten one team with a winning
No,
record.
listen, I don't think there's any question. I'd take Auburn because they're enthusiastic, and you know what it's like going to a bowl game after losing that game?
Yeah, I do, and I hadn't thought about that, Paul. And but the Coach Malzahn is. I hope that he'll get some of the people that you talked about earlier in your show off his back. Now I know that he's got some of the same people that you talked about that he's got 100% support from them. And really and truly, if you look at the whole body of work, now it's been some funky things that have gone on, but right now he's got our program in as good a shape as it could possibly be in, and if we can recruit around the quarterback, we got a national championship caliber quarterback, and we're in good shape going forward as far as our football program is concerned, and Coach Malzahn is one running the show, and he deserves a lot more credit. But I don't, he's not the kind of guy that's going to go out and have a false face on and try to impress people and meet people and so on and so forth. He is what he is from a standpoint of personality, and he's not going to cater to all of the people that want to be catered to. And one of the main things that a head football coach at a major college has got to do is pick and choose who his friends are, because them same friends will, they'll turn sour in a heartbeat when things go south. And I just hope that our fan base and the powers that be that you talked about, that we can all fall in behind Coach Malzahn. And I say him because, the same people love Auburn, and they love just the coaches, but just the least little thing raises the hairs, and it's his fault, and it's so it's a time for us to come together, and it couldn't be a better time than right now.
Coach, let me ask you about something else, because I feel like you're the best person in the world to answer this question. You came to Auburn at a time when Coach Bryant was at the top of the world, and we all know what happened in recruiting with a number of players, Ben, Tamburello, Bo, and then the next year you beat him, and a couple of weeks later, he had retired, and really his reign was over. I'm asking about Nick Saban, and I want you to just kind of give us some insight into what happens to a coach like him. He is. We all know who he is. We all know how great he is, but there just seem to be signs that maybe that window is starting to come down a little bit.
Well, I do know this: the older you get, the harder it gets for you to travel and compete, with the younger guys. Now, I mean, that's just a fact. And I think Coach Bryant saw that with me coming to Auburn. I was 41 years old, and I was working day and night, and he was wanting to go to Indian Hills and have a toddy or two and play poker for a couple of hours, and then go home and come back to the office the next day. But he had his program on automatic. It was running itself, and it was working. So and I guess every one of them are different. But we're at a great place at Auburn right now, in my opinion. If we just don't screw it up, and we do have a history of screwing it up. We just need to come together as a total family, not just portions and parts and factions, and this. The whole school needs to get behind Coach Malzahn and the athletics. And we went to the thing in baseball last year. We went to the Final Four in basketball, and there's a lot of great things that are happening in Auburn right now, and it's a great place to be.
Well, listen, you know it better than
that thing.
Well, why does Auburn? I don't mean this to come out the wrong way, but why does Auburn always seem like they screw it up?
Well, I tell you why. And it's if you had two children, you would know how to raise them better than anybody. But you might have a brother or a sister or your mama or your daddy or your granddaddy or a close friend that might think he knows how to raise your children better than you do. In other words, it's not a mean, vicious thing. It's a love thing, because they love Auburn so much, they think they know what's best for Auburn, and they got people in place down there to make decisions. And if they stumble just a itty little bit, it hurts because they care, not because they don't care. It hurts because they do care, and. It's I've watched it with myself, with Tommy, with Coach Malzahn, and that may be true at some other places, but they've had. Listen,
we saw a coach win a national championship, and he was gone 2 years later.
Yeah. Well, he really and truly, in my opinion, now he took the bullet for a couple of assistant coaches that he wouldn't fire or didn't fire. And that's what got Gene. I mean, and there's things that were going on that could not go on in an athletic department. And so, yeah, I mean, and you maybe have to talk to him about it sometime.
Oh, I have. I mean, listen, I'm just pointing out that if you don't know what's going on there, it looks strange from a distance, but that's always been the way Auburn runs.
Yeah. Well, we all got problems that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and right now we've got in my opinion, we're on the right track.
Coach, as someone who was part of ending the career of, at the time, the greatest coach in college football history, who was your boss and friend for 9 years at Alabama, do you see signs that Auburn now with this win could? I mean, they've already hung in there with Alabama, but how dramatic of a moment could this be with a coach who's 68 on the other side, and Auburn with a young coach who has a really good contract and a lot of momentum, and as you said, a great quarterback?
Well, you know, I base it on recruiting, and I can't really vouch because I'm closer to the defensive staff than I am the offensive staff at Auburn. But I do know for a fact that we are recruiting the kind of kids on defense that you can win national championships with, and hopefully we can get into that same recruiting mode on the offensive side of the football. You know, our best receiver got hurt on the first play of the ball game Saturday, and or maybe not the best, but the most dangerous, and so it's. You know, we're going to have to make over our offensive line next year. We lose 4 out of 5 starters across there, but the offensive line coach thinks that the ones that are going to replace them are better athletes than the ones that are graduating and leaving, more talent. So I don't know. It's just if we can, and just like I said, if we can surround Bo Nix with the right kind of people, and he hadn't thrown an interception since the LSU game. He's thrown 167 passes without an interception, and he's the real thing.
Well, Coach, listen, come back soon. We always enjoy talking to you. I hope your health continues, and thanks again for making time today.
Paul, I look at you all the time, and you're still the best there is out there. You know what? I would have never thought that when I was calling you up and chewing your ass out on the radio, and back in the 80s.
Yep, yeah. I got a few of those from you.
Hey, listen, Wanda was here this weekend.
Oh my goodness!
She spent the weekend with me. She spent the weekend with me, and she said, "Yeah." So I remember taking the phone out of your hand and talking to Mr. Finebaum.
Well, I don't mean to go old school, but I have to because we have to go to a break. But the worst chewing I ever got wasn't from you, but it was from your wife Sue.
Well, you got. I think you got Sue and Wanda, my child, mixed up, but it doesn't make any difference.
Well, they did me well. Let me phrase this differently. They took turns, and I didn't have much left when it was all over.
Hey, look, you have stood the test of time, and that's the greatest test of all. And I have not seen anybody on television that is beloved as you are across the nation, or my nation, where we live down here. But I hear you getting calls from California and Oregon and Texas and all over the dang United States. And you keep on keeping on.
Thank you, Coach.
And enjoy every damn minute of it.
I will. And
so we don't know when the next one,
you're
might
right.
be your last one.
Thank you for that, Coach. I will talk to you very soon. We need to catch up off the air as much as we did on the air. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Coach. Great. What an amazing guy. We will take a break after that. We're coming back. The witness protection program all year because his team hasn't played a legitimate game. But Dabo Swinney surfaced back on your televisions Saturday afternoon after dispatching South Carolina.
Obviously, if we lose this game, they're going to kick us out. They don't want us in there anyway. We'd drop to 20. Georgia loses to this very same team, and the very next day, it's how do we keep Georgia in it? We win to the team that beat South Carolina, and how do we get Clemson out? It's the dadgummest thing. So it's big because, they can't vote us out. We gotta go under. We gotta go 30-0. We ain't got no choice. But we don't play nobody.
Thank you, Dabo. Guys.
I just had an epiphany, Paul, that wasn't Dabo Swinney. What we did was we took Bobby Bowden from 1999 and just dadgum. We started the year number 1. We beat all our teams.
Right.
Dadgum, they want to move us down to 3. I mean, that is from the ACC playbook for the last 30 years.
He has become Bobby Bowden.
Yeah. Because nothing changed with Florida State in the 90s in the ACC. It's not like, all of a sudden they were this powerhouse.
No.
And now he's just taken.
If it plays to his fan base, and obviously those writers and broadcasters in the room were yucking it up like
they were loving
Saturday night at the Grand Ole Opry.
Right.
Yeah, it was quite a show.
Play the fiddle. There's Minnie Pearl.
It went all over social media, and it was being pushed a lot.
They don't even want us in the playoffs. We're the little old Clemson.
Dadgum. I mean, we played everybody.
We just got through beating Charlotte and Mercer and South Columbia High School and a bunch of good bowl teams like North Carolina going 6-6.
Mac Brown back. Miami.
I tell you what, dadgum, Mac Brown, he's a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
Dadgum, Paul. We got a conference championship we got to get through.
We got to play. Who we got in the championship? Anybody know?
Virginia.
One of the Virginias. Yeah.
Different team to win the Coastal in 7 years.
What tomato can we? I mean, what good team do we have to beat in the? Where's that game? Charlotte.
I mean, dadgum.
We got to drive an hour and 53 minutes to go to the championship game. Welcome back. Let's go to Chris in Tennessee. How are you, Chris?
I'm good, Paul. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you.
I'm an Ole Miss man from birth and a mid-60s graduate, so
yes, sir.
I have a lot of history there. I'm very disturbed with how Ole Miss handled this Matt Luke situation.
Apparently, Matt Luke was visiting a recruit on Sunday when he learned he had been fired.
That's what I understand.
That's class.
You're in a home talking to a recruit, and you get a phone call.
You know what that sounds like to me, Chris? That sounds like a group of alums decided to hijack the Ole Miss head coaching position and told the president, fire him and do it now.
Well, they've got an AD that hadn't been there but
well,
2
the AD
weeks.
just came out and gave him a vote of confidence.
Yes, and then does not fire the man face to face.
No, it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgraceful. And listen, it's their decision whether to fire Matt Luke or not, but if you're going to fire someone, don't tweet it out. Don't text him. Call him in. Thank him for his services and fire him. So, Ralph Russo reporting that Chris Petersen is leaving Washington, one of the most respected coaches in college football. Nearly came close to getting in the national championship game at Boise. Made the playoffs at Washington. Jimmy Lake is taking over. You guys know who Jimmy Lake is?
Jimmy Lake is the defensive coordinator.
He is.
And that's what I know about Jimmy Lake. He played at Eastern Washington.
Yeah, apparently he had been considered for big-time jobs, and Petersen said, stick around.
But I want to go back, because this is a tweet that came out today, Paul. And yesterday there was a tweet that came out, and I want to bring Hannah in here to ask her about this, because the dangers of tweeting about a coach being let go when it's not true. I'm speaking about Clay Helton.
Well.
Yeah, the SI had a little bit of a mess with one person tweeting it and then someone else from their staff backtracking, and now it just looks like a joke of a publication.
Well, some of it is the fact that SI is somewhat of a joke of a publication.
How do you come back? I mean, if you're the school, though, how do you end up covering for this versus?
Well, I mean, I just want to know from the reporter. I'm not asking for sources, but give me some. I mean, where'd you get that from? I mean, did you get that off the bathroom wall at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, or did you have a source who said we're going to fire? Because, I mean, the day before, Bruce Feldman, who's probably the most respected college football reporter out there, had written a piece saying he will not be fired.
Right.
Yeah, it just seems like poor journalism all around, not, double checking.
Hannah, I mean, I know you're fairly new out of college, but poor journalism all around is the standard these days.
Yeah.
What do you do, Paul, for a situation like this then? But do you have to start naming sources, or is this going to be somebody that...
Well, I mean, I worked for them for a while, so I know a little bit about their old staff. Until recently, you couldn't put a story like that out. But now, in the age of social media, get it out before somebody else does. even if it's wrong.
Dang.
We welcome you back. If you just got on board, we spent a lot of time in hour number one remembering Pat Sullivan, who at 69 passed away over the weekend. The former Heisman Trophy winner Pat Dye commenting on his former offensive coordinator. One other thing that Coach Dye said, and I'm still shaking my head because I covered the end of Coach Bryant's era at the beginning of my career. When Pat Dye got to Auburn, he was a relentless 41-year-old recruiter. Bear Bryant was 69, and actually he was 68 when Dye got there, the same age that Saban is right now. And I asked Coach Dye about that, and he said at 68, Coach Bryant was slowing down a little bit, and at night he liked to go by Indian Hills Country Club and have a few toddies and play poker with the boys while I was out recruiting 24/7. And by the way, that is not the case with Nick Saban. I know he's out recruiting today. I understand he's heading to California soon to make sure he's got that firm commitment from a five-star quarterback. You ought to look for a kicker while he's out there as well. And it's just the fact that Saban at 68 has shown no signs of letting up on recruiting. I believe he's relentless as he's ever been, but still, I think anyone who is that age will tell you it's probably not as easy. Now, that's been a conversation we've had for years, and Saban has defied the odds. Can he continue to do so is the question. Let's get back to the calls. Augie is in New Orleans. Augie, how are you?
Hey, Paul, where you at? Hey, I'm not sure Coach Dye is right. I don't think Auburn has the market on screwing things up. You know, I'm an LSU grad,
no, they don't.
We got a lot of that. And just about Pat Sullivan, I was a kid and I got to see him play in Baton Rouge. Burt Jones was quarterback for LSU. But, hey, Paul, greetings on a day where 21% of the SEC coaches who were in coaching Saturday are now in the unemployment line. Can we get some quick takes from you?
Yeah, and by the way, some of the ones who got fired are not the ones we maybe 6 weeks ago thought would get fired. It was very strange.
Right. I bet you Joe Moorhead's probably now watching your show and laughing at you. But
I hope so.
I don't think there's any love lost there.
No, listen, I mean, the thing on Joe Moorhead, I gave an honest opinion, which I'll continue to do. I'm not really trying to make friends among the 14 SEC coaches.
No, and that's why
I thought
we love you, Paul, because you call it the way it is.
Personally, I like the guy as a coach. I think he's pretty average.
Yeah. Hey, I was reading an NBC Sports web article, and they were mocking you on it, basically rejoicing in Alabama's pain by seeing it as yours also. But nonetheless, let's get to a couple of
That's
questions.
Great.
One,
well, I have not been able to sleep since Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm sure. Question number one, does Kirby have a lot of self-doubt now that he feels getting hotter and Fromm just doing a ho-hum job? What do you think?
I don't think so. Listen, Kirby knew that was a risk. I think if Kirby could have shored up the wide receiving aspect of Georgia, I don't think he'd be concerned at all. Fromm is a good quarterback. He's not as elite as Justin Fields, but he's riding Jake Fromm to the finish line, whether that's Saturday or in the playoffs.
Well, he's got no choice now. So
no.
Question number two is Jalen enjoying Bama's pain?
Knowing Jalen Hurts, I don't think he probably is experiencing any schadenfreude. I think he genuinely enjoyed his experience at Alabama, but he wasn't staying at Alabama another year. It was just really a question of where he was going.
All right, question number three. Does Burrow's success at LSU make you question even a little Urban's personnel judgment?
No. And listen, Urban had Barrett. He had Haskins. I mean, it turns out that Joe Burrow will be better than those other two. But, I mean, there's a fine line, Augie, and I completely get it. I mean, but nothing about Joe Burrow has surprised me. But, it's interesting. I heard people say that he was very close, but we tend not to believe that. I just think he found the right situation and the right coach.
I think he did. I think two people in need. It just matched up well. Now, I'm going to ask you, this is about Alabama. And if you remember your World War II history, after the Allies took North Africa, Churchill said, this is not the end, nor is it the beginning of the end, but it is the end of the beginning. Is this a fair statement when it pertains to Alabama's dominance on the SEC?
Yes, I think it is. I don't think there's any question about it. And listen, You referenced it earlier. I mean, there's nobody who gets accused more of being an Alabama sycophant and Saban worshiper than me.
That's true.
But
It's the way people talk. You have an altar and you pray to Saban at night.
But I'm
Like
telling
a
you,
Roman figure.
when things really get serious, I try to take my crimson glasses off and give people like you an honest answer. And I don't like what I see. Frankly, I haven't liked it for a while. But there's a blind notion to just continue to defend people sometimes because they are great. They are great, but the only advantage I have, Augie, over some people is I covered the end of Paul Bryant. I was there for 2 years.
Do you have that feeling? Do you have that feeling that things are turning?
I do.
mean, turning towards the end.
Yes, I do.
I know he's
Listen,
old. He's 68, but 68 is the new 50. So hey, Paul, you have something to look forward to.
But the problem with the age is not really the issue. It's the competition, and it's coming from all different sides. It's coming from Baton Rouge, with the resurgence in recruiting. I mean, Nick Saban for 6 or 7 or 8 years.
He picked Louisiana apart.
He has owned Louisiana. He doesn't own Louisiana anymore. And
no, ran him out.
He did, and that's the first sign. It's always in recruiting, I think. And Kirby has battled him. Listen, Kirby should have beaten him both times. There's no doubt about that, and he didn't. I still think Jimbo Fisher, as hard as it is to say on this Monday after that just behind the woodshed kicking, is still someone who will contend with Saban. Dan Mullen is a problem in Florida. And even Jeremy Pruitt, I think, shows up in Knoxville. I mean, you can go World War II history or any other type of history, but suddenly there is no longer an era or an aura, I should say, of invincibility. And I'll tell you something, Augie. When you start to lose, even the way Alabama has lost, it resonates. And I can't tell you, where it will resonate the most, but 3 weeks from now in recruiting will be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. Before I hang up, I've got to talk about, of course, LSU. And one of the things they talk about is Jimbo makes $7.5 million a year. O makes $3.5. Jimbo's making 53% more a year. A&M paid Jimbo $4.375 million to win 7 games. LSU paid O $3.5 million to win 12 games. It cost LSU $375,000 more to win 12 games than it did for A&M to pay Bama to lose 5 games. I mean, it's just really crazy.
Yeah, but the one thing I'll say about Jimbo Fisher, though, Augie, take your shots at him this year. I don't mean you. If he's still not trending upwards next year, it's not going to work. But he's in a critical year coming up. I mean, what happened Saturday undid a lot of the in-between conversation that he's playing all these great teams. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like that. That was a total embarrassment.
Do you think LSU's real defense showed up Saturday night? And if they did, what do you think their chances are in the playoffs?
I tell you what, I'm only concerned that LSU put too much energy in that game. They could have won that game without going through the motions, but I mean,
it could have been 70 points easy because they let off the gas.
Yeah,
and here's one thing we got to say: Joe Oliva's reputation is being resurrected by the minute. The man is looking like a genius.
He really is.
Will Wade is there. He's turned basketball around, and he hired O. So look how history really judges you. Hey, Paul, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Keep it up.
Great to have you on. Let's get the county of Columbia, South Carolina, to be heard from now. Cat Daddy, what do you say?
I come before you humbled, but I also want to congratulate the Tigers. They won fair and square.
They did.
I also, Mr. Finebaum, want to congratulate our fans. They showed up in full force. They didn't throw water bottles at the Clemson players, and a lot of them left early, so the Clemson fans wouldn't have to deal with so much traffic on their way back to Clemson.
You know, what I love now is South Carolina fans are congratulating their fans for showing up for the biggest game of the year. This is the new paradigm.
Yeah. I tell you, I tried to call you Friday. I had a story. I was in the liquor store, and there's Clemson people was coming into town with the flags flying on the cars and all these. Goes up when the liquor store comes in on for Cat Daddy. I said, I'm Cat Daddy. He said, well, you the one that calls in on the Paul Finebaum show. I said, yes, I call every now and then. He said, well, I heard you taking your Gamecocks to beat my Tigers. I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I want to make a bet with you. I said, all right. So I'll buy 2 cases of Palmetto moonshine, and if we lose, I'll bring them back over here after the ball game. I said, sounds like a winner. He said, but one other thing you have to do for me, and that is eat a moon pie for every score we make. And he handed me a box of moon pies. So I said, all right, I'll take that bet. I ain't scared. Well, he got ready to leave, and Junior looked at me and said, why you got to eat the moon pies? So I caught the man out of his RV. I said, mister, why am I got to eat these moon pies? He said, because we're going to score so many points on you Gamecocks, your rear end is going to go into an eclipse.
You know, kid, I got to congratulate you. You have nothing, your football team's not worth talking about, so you might as well change the subject. Great to have you on. We're up against a break. Connor O'Gara coming up shortly. More on the...
I won't be accessible for public comments or comment on any search until the next football coach is hired. I'm grateful to our student athletes as well as those past players who have worked so hard to make this program what it is today. Coach Odom bleeds black and gold, and I understand that, which made it not an easy decision. Did not make this move lightly, and I made this move to move our program forward, to build on the success of our past, of our current players, and those yet to come. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Less than 4 months ago, you signed him to an extension. What changed in such a short amount of time to make that decision?
Well, I felt we lost momentum of the program, and that it would be difficult for us under his leadership to continue to move it forward. Missouri has the resources to be a top 25 consistently in the postseason, to compete for championships. I think Coach Pinkel showed that in a couple times he went to the championship game in the SEC. I think with the investment that we've made recently in our South End Zone project, it puts us on a level as far as facilities that are second to none. So I'm excited about the future. I think we have a great opportunity moving forward. We have a lot of good players in our program that we want to build upon and get the right person in here, a really good coach to come in and take over. Football is our largest revenue driver, and so our ticket sales have continued to go down. We need, there's probably a $5 to $6 million range where just to get back where we were in 2014 or so. So we've got work to do. The decision today is part of that in getting back to that level. Chancellor Cartwright and President Choi will be consistently involved. We won't have a huge search committee, if you will. I'll keep key individuals involved, informed, but we're going to try to move quickly. It's important. Things have really changed as far as the football landscape with the early signing period, the 18th through the 20th, with the transfer portal, all those things. So it's important that we move swiftly and hire the right person.
Welcome back. What has already been a fascinating show with Coach Dye on earlier. A lot of reaction, a little bit of overreaction, but then again, it's the Monday as the regular season comes to an end. We're listening to Jim Sturk there talk about the release of Barry Odom. We've seen Matt Luke lose his job. Chad Morris, of course. Doesn't seem like anyone else will lose their jobs in the SEC, but what do I know? Oh, I'm losing my job. Is that what you hear?
I might lose mine.
Is that on Twitter right now? Connor O'Gara joins us from Saturday Down South. Nothing like an overreaction on Monday. Connor, you overreact pretty much every time you write something, so this is right up your alley. Good afternoon, and let's get your takeaways from the weekend.
Jeez, good to talk to you too, Paul. Man, what did I do to you? Goodness gracious.
Well, you guys have a column I read every Sunday morning on the way to the airport. What I'm overreacting to.
Yeah, I mean that's what we do as college football fans, and especially when we've had an entire regular season now to sort of dissect it. And there are some fans who are awaiting bowl berths, and there are others who are trying to figure out what their next head coach is going to be, and probably blowing their search out of the water and trying to come up with the most unrealistic candidates possible. I don't know about you, but it seems like that's been a theme so far for SEC teams. And I get it, like every fan base does it, but it just seems like this year we've had a couple of fan bases who have just been like ready to, assume that they're just going to get the biggest name head coach. They're going to get the splashiest hire possible. And it's like, is that realistic right now? Not to name names, but Arkansas fans seem to be doing that quite a lot lately, at least.
Yeah, what's going on? I mean, we have three different searches going on. It seems like everyone has the same names being mentioned. Are you able to, clear through all the guck and discern really where Arkansas, Missouri, Ole Miss, any of these coaching searches are heading?
I think right now, there are certain dominoes that are waiting to fall. I mean, I think that there are a lot of people who are interested in a guy like Mike Norvell, who's done really, really good work over at Memphis and is a win away from playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. I think he's attractive for all of those SEC openings. The question, of course, that's been thrown around with him is he holding out for the Florida State job? And are there a variety of candidates like that?
And by the way, what's taking them so long?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, because Florida State I thought was gonna hopefully have something in the works, like basically by the end of the season. Usually when you fire a coach as early as they did, they kind of, that leads you to believe that, all right, within a couple days of the season ending, they're going to name somebody as their head coach. But I think the Mark Stoops thing kind of threw him for a loop a little bit. Maybe he was their backup. That seemed like the vibe that he was getting from them. And then, Florida State, who knows what exactly that search looked like from the start. And everybody heard about the Bob Stoops rumors, and maybe Florida State is waiting for some of these coaches to play in conference championship games before they figure out what their path is going to be. I don't know. It seems like a big mystery right now.
Yeah, and we forget. I mean, there are conference championship games coming up, and if you have a coach in one of those, then there's not much you can do right now.
Yeah, there's really not. I mean, I remember a few years ago listening to, Bill Moose talk about the Nebraska opening, and Scott Frost is, he's set to play in this conference championship game. And meanwhile, we're hearing nothing about the Nebraska coaching search, not even guys who have been interviewed for the job. And all the while, you knew that Frost already had a deal in place, and it was kept so quiet because he was like, hey, just let me have my space here. I want to play in a conference championship game. I'm sort of waiting for that to unfold. Now, I realize that there are athletic directors who are very impatient, and understandably so, because of the new early signing period. These guys want to get their head coaches. They want to get their, whatever athletic directors out there, that's sitting there in the middle of December that still has to make a head coaching decision is got to be panicking. And it was kind of interesting hearing, Ole Miss, Keith Carter say that, we're hoping to have somebody in place in the next week and a half. That's a long time in the coaching carousel in the recruiting world, and with the transfer portal now, there's a lot of moving pieces there. And I think there's a lot of pressure on these coaches to get these deals done now, or these athletic directors to get these deals done now with these coaches and not have to wait a week and a half, because time is precious and the clock's ticking.
Let me ask you about one in particular, Lane Kiffin, because he has not fared well in recent years in terms of coaching circles. But it almost seems like maybe this is his time. He's been linked to the Arkansas job, other jobs. How legitimate a candidate do you think Lane Kiffin is for Arkansas or anywhere else?
I don't see the Arkansas thing as much. And Arkansas fans hated me for saying this because I went on radio earlier with local Arkansas radio, and I said the exact same thing. I said, I don't see necessarily, I'll eat crow if I'm wrong on that. I absolutely will. But the situation that he's got in Boca right now, he's not in any hurry. I mean, the guy's still 44 years old. It's not a money thing with Lane that's going to drive him to his next job. I think he's kind of realizing, okay, if they win double-digit games again, they win their second Conference USA title in 3 years, that's kind of showing the world, hey, I'm ready to get a Power 5 job again. I don't know what that's necessarily going to be, or if that's for sure going to be this year. I think that, Mizzou would be, Mizzou would love to land somebody like him. I don't know if he's going to be willing to take on, some of the sanctions that they're going to have to deal with. They have scholarship limitations, official visit limitations, all those different things from the academic fraud fallout. But, what about Ole Miss? I mean, what about Lane?
Well, I mean, what's interesting, though, is I continue, Connor, not to jump in, but I continue to hear smoke coming out of Arkansas that he is a legitimate candidate.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna. Yeah, why wouldn't they pursue him? Why wouldn't Hunter Yurachek want to pursue him? And there have been, reports the flight tracker. It's flight tracker season, as you know. There apparently have been, flights going to Boca or whatever, to be able to talk to him. I totally get it from their standpoint. I mean, it makes a lot of sense of why they would want to get somebody on board like Kiffin. You're trying to sell tickets. You're trying to sell an identity, and Kiffin brings that in a heartbeat. And I think that, if you're Kiffin, getting the chance to play Nick Saban on a yearly basis, not the worst thing in the world. Everybody's talked about that since he's basically left the SEC. So, yeah, from their standpoint, I would totally get it. I just don't know if Lane Kiffin wants to look at that Arkansas situation, a program that has one SEC win in the last 3 years, and he says, yeah, that's what I want to sign up for. That's what I want to leave this good life in Boca that I have for, to go and get back into it. I don't know if that's on top of his mind right now. I don't know if there's going to be other jobs that are open to him. Who knows if even a team like Florida State would go after Lane Kiffin. I mean, given where the search has gone, that wouldn't be the most stunning thing in the world. I think Lane Kiffin's going to have his options. I don't know if Arkansas is the most attractive one right now.
Let me ask you about the Alabama situation. That's the story of the weekend. It's always dangerous to write off the greatest dynasty in college football history. But your assessment of where Alabama is today?
Alabama is in a different place than it was, 3 years ago. I think we can say that with certainty. Seeing the way that they've lost these games where, I know that they had the 2 pick sixes, but you threw out the stat earlier about, the fact that they played 2 top 25 teams this year, and both of them put up record-setting numbers against the Saban defense at Alabama. And, those numbers are partially skewed because of the pick sixes, but at the same time, the game is just different in terms of, the way that we evaluate defenses. And teams are scoring more, obviously, than ever against Nick Saban coach defenses. I'm not writing him off yet. And I know that's such an easy thing to do right now, but go back and look at those quotes from 2014. Go back and look at what people were saying about Saban and, Urban Meyer passing him up and everybody else passing him up. Teams kind of passed him by. He had his run. He had, the titles in, 3 or 4 years, all that stuff. I get it. But, I think that this is a different situation right now. I think that we just need to kind of change our expectations of Alabama on a yearly basis. They're not the unbeatable force that they were. Obviously, Auburn was able to beat them dealing with a backup quarterback, of course, Alabama was, but this is just a different scenario. And I think that right now, Alabama's still an extremely good program. I'm not going to write Alabama off, as long as Saban's on those sidelines. And as of right now, we have nothing to believe that he's going away anytime soon. But, it was sort of alarming to see Auburn continue to bounce back with a true freshman quarterback and find a way to win that game. And I think right now, if you're Alabama, you're just trying to figure out, all right, how are we going to maintain our place at the top list, the college football world? Because it is still just 2 losses. I mean, let's not pretend like it's, that they're having some 8-4 season or something like that. Now, Alabama was still considered to be in the playoff hunt. They were still a top 5 team last weekend. I'm not writing them off. I know many people are right now.
Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. Connor, many thanks. Great to have you on.
Yep, appreciate it, Paul.
We're going to take a break. More to come at 855-242-7285. We'll go to Mississippi a little bit. Look at this tweet. This is a tweet from Hembo. You hear him mentioned all the time on Get Up with Greeny. That is stunning, by the way. Look at that.
It's the 2 takeaways that really stand out. Versus, that's Paul. I mean, in Nick Saban's career at Alabama, did you ever think you'd see numbers like that over a 3-game
we always
stretch?
talk about him being the greatest football coach, but he's also the greatest defensive coach.
Right.
That's how he's made a living. It's pretty hard to believe. And
secondary coach, even digging a little further down than that, right? So that's the unit you kind of depend on to make interceptions, get those takeaways. I don't know. It's not we've been saying it all year. It's not a vintage Alabama defense, and I know they had a lot of injuries, but is it
Listen,
the new standard?
I'm to the point, and you knew when Dylan Moses went down, that was a big deal. But come on, I mean, we are talking about Alabama now, and
true.
It's one thing losing maybe the greatest quarterback in SEC history. It's another thing losing a really good linebacker.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Paul, I mean, 10-2 is not a terrible year by any stretch.
Well, hey,
it's not the standard.
Mark, don't give me the Notre Dame standards. Okay?
No. Look, do you really think Alabama's going to be back next year? I mean, they play Georgia at home, USC to open the year. Tennessee's getting better.
They're at LSU. Yeah.
And we don't know. They're losing the receivers, running backs.
I think one thing about the SEC to make a judgment on December 2nd about what people will have is is really foolish. All you have is the schedule, but you don't know the personnel.
Right.
Now, one thing I do know about personnel is Texas A&M will have its team back. And now, take that for whatever it is, but I fully expect A&M to be a really good team next year.
Would Alabama be a team that would start pursuing the transfer portal as a way to get players in, which they haven't really, they've been victimized by?
But the question becomes, who's going to? And we're 2 weeks away from recruiting. I mean, Saban right now is ranked number 1. Does that hold up? I mean, he's going to have to go out there and convince people this program is still legitimately at the top of the heap. It's in the upper echelon. But I mean, you wake up today and you look at your phone and there's Alabama ranked number 9th in the country, and you're going like, what universe did I go to?
3.
Welcome back. Let's continue with more phone calls. And Jody is in Georgia. Hey there.
I appreciate you having me on the show, man. You know I'm a Clemson fan, so I know this is down on Dabo Day, but I want to take up for him a little bit. But I do understand your point, and I'm thinking he might be doing the same thing you did when we talked not long ago, and you said you was just stirring the pot back when we talked about it.
Oh, listen, Jody, I get what he's doing, okay? I mean, he's having some fun. He's trying to let everybody listen. We just beat a team that beat Georgia.
That's right.
And we destroyed them.
Right.
And not only that, they went 4-8, and they're keeping their coach, which we like, by the way.
That's right. We do too. We like him too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, Clemson fans want Will Muschamp to stay at the university for as long as possible, because they know what it was like when South Carolina had a legitimately big-time coach in Steve Spurrier.
We do. Listen, I used to get a bunch of invites to those Clemson Carolina games when Carolina was wearing us out. I got a bunch of invites, but now I don't get any invites to the Clemson Carolina game in Carolina. So we know what it's like the other way.
Listen, Jody, nothing's going to matter come Sunday. Clemson will more than likely be ranked number 3. They'll be playing the number 2 team, and everyone's going to say the same thing. Man, I don't want to have to play Clemson in the playoffs.
Well, what do you think?
No, I think I think they become a really strong team over the course of the last 15 weeks.
So if let's say that everything goes like we think it's going to go, who do you like in the end?
I mean, right now I want to see LSU this weekend just to get one more look at them. But I would not rank LSU among the favorites to win.
Their defense did look better this past week.
It did, but I mean, I think Ohio State. Right now Ohio State looks like they're a little better than everyone else. But the hard part about Clemson is I think they're really elite. I just don't know, because how can you know?
I don't think we've played our best game yet either.
Well, you haven't had a reason to.
That's true, but I mean, I hope it's there when we need it.
Well, listen, that's what it comes down to, Jody. And I used to say Nick Saban's the best, but right now Dabo Swinney is the best at getting his team ready for the playoffs. Nobody has come close to what he's done the last 4 years in terms of domination.
Well, I can tell you that Bowden isn't that bad a one to make stuff after.
No, Bobby Bowden's one of the greatest coaches of all time. So, listen, Clemson fans, don't get upset, okay? I realize it's been a boring year and nobody's paying attention to you and you're playing a bunch of losers. But your time's coming. You got a big conference championship game against Thomas Jefferson University on Saturday night, and enjoy the moment. Stefan is in Mississippi. You're on the air.
How's it going, Paul?
It's going great.
Yeah, I hope you had a good, happy Thanksgiving, you and your family.
Thank you. It was
great.
I
just wanted to run a couple of things by you. With the Iron Bowl, I heard a couple of your callers talking earlier about the 1 second and trying to compare it to 2013.
Yeah, I think the rule changed, didn't it?
Yeah, to me, what I found the difference between 2013 and last Saturday was that Nick Saban was arguing that as his receiver went out of bounds, there was 1 second left.
Oh, okay.
Versus a guy getting started with forward progress.
You're right.
Field. So that kind of is a little confusing to me. You know, a guy going out of bounds and there maybe 1 second left, I understand that. As soon as that ball is spotted in the middle of the field, that 1 second goes off. So, I mean, we might want to kind of look at that before we just start comparing that to 2013.
Stephon, tell me this. Whether it was right or not, and I felt at the time Gus Malzahn had one up Nick Saban. It wasn't the last time that it happened that day.
Absolutely.
Alabama still was in a position to wrap that game up when they were down on the 2 or 3 yard line.
Absolutely. No, not taking anything away from Auburn. He simply out-coached
yeah, I mean, listen, he didn't out-coach Saban. He left him on the field splattered. I mean, Gus just made Nick Saban look stupid.
Yes, sir. And one
Did I
more
just say
thing.
that?
You did. Yeah, you did.
Just got ejected out of my chair.
Don't let ESPN hear that.
No, don't let Saban hear it. I don't need any problems with him. I mean, after all, he's well, I guess I won't be seeing much of him during the playoffs unless they send me down to cover the Citrus Bowl.
And just one more thing real quick, Paul. A couple of callers already talked about it, and I know you talked to the young man from the Star. Just a really classless move by Ole Miss with Matt Luke. You know, I understand that if you're going to get rid of a guy, but just to throw some things at you really quick about what he inherited. And I'm a Florida State fan. And to my Florida State fans, that's what inheriting a dumpster fire looks like, considering what he had to deal with Ole Miss, and still was able to recruit guys like John
you know what I liked about Matt Luke? He was a good person. He was loyal to his university. I don't know. I mean, I always get suspicious, and people have heard me say this, when the athletic director gives you a vote of confidence and you get fired a week later. You know what that means? It means the athletic director is not calling the shots.
Exactly. What do you think the makeup is going to be with the team? There are reports of half of the team wanting to quit.
Well, let me say this, Stephon. I am all for youth being served, and I'm all for young people expressing themselves. But I've seen players do this countless times, and as soon as you get a new coach in and you have a fiery team meeting and everybody comes together, that usually abates fairly quickly. Brian is up next in Florida. Hey, Brian, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul. I'm going to switch tack a little bit. First, I want to congratulate you for your heartfelt condolences. And as a Georgia Bulldog fan, I want to speak for a lot of Georgia fans and wishing condolences to the Pat Sullivan family, as well as the family at the University of Auburn for losing one of the best ambassadors of their school.
And by the way, it was against Georgia that he won the Heisman. I guess you know that.
My point, while waiting on line, I noticed on the bottom line that Auburn got fined another $250,000 for storming their field. And you had a previous guest from Saturday Down South, but what most people don't realize is that 5 years ago, there's an article printed by them about how Alabama and Florida never stormed the field, and that's not true. You might remember in 1984, at the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Florida fans finally getting their first win over Georgia stormed the Gator Bowl stadium field for their first victory since '77. And you might remember well that in the late 80s, and most notably in the 1990 Iron Bowl, thousands of Alabama fans stormed the old Gray Lady at Legion Field when they beat Auburn in 1990.
I do not remember that.
Yeah, it's a
I was at the game.
I'm sure production assistants can find the footage.
I mean, listen,
of that.
my memory's pretty good for 20. Was that 30 years ago? I'm sorry, Brian. I was on the field at the end of that game. I don't remember any Alabama fan storming the field. But then again, sometimes we have a difference of opinion when it comes to memory recollection. We're heading to a break. More to come. More of your phone calls. We've already had Pat Dye on, and with a pretty epic interview in the annals of Pat Dye lore.
Well, on to the big one. Got an exciting football opportunity to play what I think is one of the best teams in the country. As explosive as a team as I have probably ever watched on tape. I don't even know what the numbers say. Obviously, the numbers say they're really good, but I don't go by that. I go by what I see on tape, and they do a tremendous job. Defensively, we've had them on tape. I know we overlapped on Auburn and Florida, and I think Dave Aranda does a tremendous job. They've got a very experienced secondary, talented up front, play a lot of players. Just a tremendous overall program. And what Coach Orgeron's been able to do with his program from a standpoint of winning big games, I mean, playing top 25, top 10 opponents, I think he's been as good as anybody in the country. And I got a lot of respect for him. I always have. I've known him for a long time. And his teams take on his personality, which is toughness, physical, and cut it loose. So this will be as great a challenge as we've had. I know since I've been here as far as playing an opponent, and our players have earned this opportunity. We didn't back our way into this game. We earned our way into this game. And we're looking forward to the opportunity to play in what is probably one of the greatest stages, I've said it over and over, in all of college football.
Kirby, in your experience as a head coach, sometimes when a new quarterback coach or offensive coordinator come in, is there sometimes a transition period for a quarterback? And do you think Jake has experienced any of that this year at all?
No, I don't think so. We really don't have a new quarterback coach because it's the same guy that did it last year, different coordinator. But I don't think, if anything, they're probably better on the same page because they're in a second year of being in the room together. So I think that's a big part of growth and growing up and being able to do things. Biggest difference this year is who's healthy, who's out there playing. I mean, 3 guys are in the NFL that were out there playing last year, and really 5 when you count Holyfield and Nada. So there's not been a level of consistency with the perimeter skill that there probably was last year. That's the biggest difference.
Hey, Coach, is there an update on DeAndre Swift's injury going into next game? I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, we're hopeful that he's going to be able to play.
Why is it important for guys like that to kind of handle whatever's going on with George right now?
Well, it's important to have a big brother. I mean, we all have mentors, and you grow as a young player. I mean, young players across the country, you have to grow up.
Welcome back. Glad you're here, and let's continue with more calls. Big Sky is up next. How are you, Big Sky?
Doing fine, Mr. Finebaum, in a Roll Tide. You know, I tell you, that was one fine football game. Auburn came prepared to do a job, and they done it. But if we hadn't lost our quarterback, I think it would have been a different story. But we've seen this happen year after year after year. I've been seeing it for 60 years. Auburn and Alabama going at it head to head, and watch this Saturday, and everybody's talking about Alabama being out in left field now, and they won't be any good anymore. And
Big Sky, nobody's saying that. We're just talking about whether there'll be. We're talking about a dynasty here. A dynasty is when you pretty much have the championships cornered, and clearly that's not happening right now.
But have we not cornered the championships?
Well, we're not using past tense here to keep. We're talking about present and future, not past.
Well, he'll be back. Saban will be back. We'll be back.
Listen, Big Sky. My job is not to tell you whether you'll be back or not. My job is simply to give an opinion on what I see.
Well, I love your show, and I appreciate you so much. And I really, really thank you for being on the air. And but I just got to say, Roll Tide, and we'll hang in with them.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you will. Sky, keep the faith, okay?
Well, I have the faith. That's what I was trying to tell you. I've been in there 60 years, and I've watched this go up and down, and all of a sudden Alabama will get on and they'll win, just like they are now. And then they'll go down. People say they gone. What's going to happen next year?
Nobody knows, Big Sky, with all due respect, nobody really knows what's going to go on. Anyway, we're continuing to follow the rumors about Lane Kiffin. Just think about this for a second. Lane Kiffin in Fayetteville and his best friend, John Daly. I've heard John Daly is pushing Lane Kiffin pretty hard out there. More phone calls, and Mary is in Birmingham. Mary, go right ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
We're doing well.
I'm a little sad. I think Alabama had a rough day Saturday, but I was real concerned about the young man, the kicker, Joseph Bullivus, because he's taken a lot of flack, and that game was not lost because of
Well,
one missed
Mary,
field goal.
anyone who blames Joseph Bolivar for that is just an idiot.
No, I agree.
I mean,
And
it's-
Alabama fans are not, they've got to back their team. And again, the team is everybody on that team. How many penalties? How many? Of course, I thought Mac played a good game. Yes, he threw 2 picks, and yes, they turned into points. But we did respond with, touchdowns. It was a very difficult game to watch as an Alabama fan.
Sure.
And I
by the way,
wanted
most
to
games
say,
at Auburn are.
they are. I think Auburn definitely has the well, I call it a curse, the Auburn curse against Alabama, but it's not over, and Saban is not out. And as an Alabama fan, I just wanted people to know that it is a collective effort, and teams are not gonna win every game. I wish they would, but they don't. So I just wanted to say
Thank you very much.
what was on my heart. Thank you.
I do
Bye-bye.
appreciate that very much. Let's talk to Tim, who's in Virginia. Hello, Tim.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thanks for the call.
Yes, sir. I just want to talk a little bit about the game on Saturday. I think it was an excellent football game. And I think what really killed Alabama was the penalties. They went down and scored, and then they got that holding call. And I was like, I hope this is not going to be a trend, for them at the game. And I think that's what really hurt them.
Good point.
So, but I just think, I just want to let you know that I enjoy your call, your show, and I appreciate everything that you do. And I'm hoping Saban will maybe try to find a field goal kicker. I know it's not his fault.
Listen, Nick
but I don't
Saban
think
has been. He is. It's not like he is unaware of the field goal kicking situation. He has signed great kickers in the past. For some reason, they're just cursed. I don't understand it. I really don't. Let's talk to Bart next in Georgia. Hey, Bart.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
We're doing well. Thank you.
First time caller. I love your show, man. Do a great job. I think you hit the point I was going to make earlier when you're talking about Saban being able to recruit in Louisiana. His first few years, Alabama just set the bar so high for the rest of the conference and really the rest of the nation. If you want to, win like we do, recruit like we do and coach like we do. So, we set the bar really high years ago, and now we're having teams that have caught up with us in the recruiting cycle, and we're just, like I said, we set the bar really high, and teams are catching up with us now. That's the bottom line. But
well, it does
I don't think
happen,
we're going anywhere.
and listen, I'm not saying that nothing's over. I mean, Alabama is still among the premier programs in America, but let's see how they do in recruiting. Let's see how they finish the season. There's a lot of speculation on where they'll go. It's all rumor mill right now. You've got basically 3 bowl selections for a couple of different teams. The Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl are the 2 biggest. The Sugar Bowl, if Georgia loses, will get Georgia. The Orange Bowl probably would want Florida with the proximity. It's conceivable Alabama could end up in the Cotton Bowl, maybe taking on Memphis. Would you want to play Memphis right now? Assuming they win and get to the Cotton Bowl? Alabama versus Memphis. Well, it's not. At least it's different than Alabama versus Clemson. Alabama, the whole country wanted a different game. Well, they got one. We are. Theoretically, we're up against a break. More to come with your phone calls. And we have reached the Zim part of the show. That means we're halfway done.
Yeah, Paul, a lot of news obviously going on, and it's important to separate fact from fiction. And we have nothing but facts for you here today. Let's check out the headlines. We're going to start in Gainesville, where Felipe Franks announced on Sunday he is leaving the Gators. He says he will either enter the NFL draft or transfer. He has 24 career starts. Now, if Franks does transfer, it would extend a trend of quarterbacks who have started for Florida this decade and ended their college careers elsewhere. Check out this list. It's kind of a scattering of NFL quarterbacks and some other names you may have forgotten. Jacoby Brissett, Jeff Driscoll, and all the way down to Will Grier. Of course, Frank's decision still pending. Speaking of quarterback transfers, South Carolina, Jake Bentley, he announced today he is leaving South Carolina. He will transfer. He's in the transfer portal. Bentley has 33 career starts, so there's a veteran quarterback out there on the market. Sticking with South Carolina, the State today, they reported that Brian McClendon, he will no longer be the Gamecocks offensive coordinator. He's going to remain on staff as wide receivers coach. So the Gamecocks now looking for another offensive coordinator. Also out is quarterbacks coach Dan Warner. He has been let go. Strength coach Jeff Dillman has also been let go, according to the State. Yeah, Paul, so South Carolina, this goes back to Florida. Will Muschamp trying to find an offensive coordinator that works, and it's kind of extended on here.
Yeah, again, he's made a couple of changes in the past. I don't know where he is because he's entering in now presumably his 5th year. It looks like he is going to make it. So he's got to find an answer, but what is it?
Yeah, one name that's been floated out there is Mike Bobo, the Colorado State head coach who has ties to Will Muschamp back at Georgia. Paul, a couple other notes here with Missouri. Tight end Albert Okuaibunam is declared for the NFL draft, and quarterback Connor Bazelak, he has torn his ACL. He was going to compete for the starting job in the spring, so we hope he gets back pretty soon.
We'll be right back.
All them dogs are counting down, about to put the anchor down. Hotty toddy, who's it gonna be? Cowbells and swamp, the ag is wrong. There's nothing like the SEC. The weekend's full of surprise. Hit 'em with the flex. From Williams by Death Valley. On the Finebaum show, Paul's on the roll. If he don't get the best of me, call Paul. Paul. He'll make sense of it all.
What's going on, Finebaum?
Wheelers up on Rocky Top, the Razorbacks are hard to stop. War Eagles soaring in the wind.
Let me talk, Tammy. Okay, go.
Tigers rocking in the zoo. Wildcats are grinning too. Talk about the tide that's rolling in. The weekend's full of surprises. From big upsets to rivalries. On the Finebaum show, heads are gonna roll. If they don't get the best of me, we'll call Paul. He'll make sense of it all. Yeah, call Paul.
Don't take those calls.
I could give you my address and phone number if you're ever in this neck of the woods.
This is the Paul Finebaum show. It's not Jerry Springer, right?
The Paul Finebaum Show is presented by Regions Bank.
We welcome all of you back. Second half of the show is live and underway. It's been a very busy one, as you can imagine, on the day after, or the day after the day after. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. Pat Dye joined us earlier. Some very poignant comments from the legendary coach, some of them about his former assistant and offensive coordinator, Pat Sullivan, who passed away yesterday at the age of 69. Let's get back to the calls, and Steve is in Georgia. Hey, Steve, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul, this is Steve. First-time caller, long-time listener. Love your show.
Thank you.
I missed your lead-in, but can you tell me who's in the SEC championship game?
Yeah, that would be Florida and Kentucky.
I thought it was Alabama and Auburn, but what?
Well, hey, listen. Remember one thing: the game's at 4:00 on Saturday. The Alabama-Auburn conversation is going to dissipate pretty quickly.
No, I understand that. Let me ask you your thoughts: defense versus offense, 1 versus 4, play-in game. How would you rank the SEC championship versus the others in the country?
Well, it's easily the best this year. I mean, you have the 2 versus 4, 1 versus 4. I mean, I don't find the Ohio State-Wisconsin game particularly compelling because it really doesn't mean a whole lot. Probably the most important game, the two most important games are, unless you're a Georgia fan, are Baylor, Oklahoma, and Utah, Oregon. But the reason why the SEC game is the supreme game this year is that both teams are potentially going to the playoffs. We know LSU is. Georgia goes with a win. No other game has that cachet.
No, absolutely. One other question: if you were starting a program in the SEC, and you had to pick between Dan Mullen, Malzahn, Fisher, Kirby Smart, Coach O, or Stoops, who would you pick and why?
I would be torn between probably Kirby and Dan Mullen because I think Kirby is maybe the better recruiter. Mullen might be the better. Might be. They're different ends of the ball. I mean, those would be my final two choices, and then I would just have to think about where I am. And the reason why I wouldn't take Orgeron, I think he's a great coach, but I think he is unique to LSU.
Oh, absolutely.
Fisher, I must tell you, I'm officially worried about Jimbo Fisher. I'm not impressed with what he's done this year. I still think he can salvage the situation next year with the team he has coming back, but there's no excuse to lose the way he did Saturday night.
Yeah, that was a beat down. Love your show. You had Blythe, Georgia's finest on, Pat Sullivan. What a great person. He broke my heart in 1971 when he won Heisman, but what a great American.
I think he threw 4 touchdowns against Georgia that day. It was a memorable.
He absolutely did. Lit us up. It was a great game, but they won, and like I said,
I'll tell you this, Steve. Pat Sullivan was very. He was definitely an old guard player that he had great respect for everyone. I used to have lunch with Pat all the time when he was in Birmingham and after he retired, and just to listen to him talk about those days and the friends that he made, that he still had until he passed away yesterday, is pretty remarkable. Thank you very much for the call. Tim is in South Carolina. Hello, Tim. You're on the air.
How are you, sir?
We're doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to defend, as a Clemson fan, just defend Dabo a bit here.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is this. Everyone throughout the season, and including the last handfuls of weeks, have been saying, all right, if LSU loses, they still go to the playoffs. If Ohio State loses, they still go to the playoffs. Georgia looks like a good playoff team. They're giving us reasons behind Utah, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Even you yourself with Alabama up until, obviously, this past weekend. And so what I'm saying is, his point, I think, was we lose one game and all of a sudden we stink and we're out of the playoffs. And I believe you yourself have even said we wouldn't get into the playoffs with a loss.
No.
And what I'm saying is this. That still doesn't – I mean, I'm not a fan of this playoff system, to be quite honest. I think it's a bad system, but it is the system we have currently. We're still one of the best 4 teams. Whether we take a loss – I mean, eventually every team has to take a loss. And if you're Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, obviously the loss you take is going to be against an inferior team. Let's be realistic. 99 times out of 100, you're not playing the other guy. You're playing somebody else. So I think what he's saying is we may take a loss, but Oregon, who, oh my goodness, they have not looked great all year until they lost to Arizona, and got that second loss.
Yeah, but Tim, the difference is I understand his frustration, but what did he gain by saying it other than to sound like a whiny snot?
Well, I think his gain is like every other.
I mean, he's in the playoff with a win against Virginia, and what was accomplished other than just enhancing the opinion that some of us have of where Clemson has been. I mean, I have great respect for Clemson, but I didn't really need to hear that on Saturday afternoon, nor do I need to hear anybody defending them. Amy is in Birmingham. You're on the air. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Paul. It's so good to talk with you today.
Thank you.
And I am a first-time caller as well, and I'm mainly calling for a couple of reasons. One, I am locally here in Birmingham, Alabama, but I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go Tigers. Alumni there of LSU, both my husband and myself, and we've been in Birmingham 5 years, and we were there as juniors at LSU when Saban helped us win our national championship in 2003. And so Of course, heartbroken when he left us, and then, of course, always felt that little bitter tinge of anger that he did leave us and then eventually to come coach here at Alabama. But just want to call and just say how proud I am of Joe Burrow and Coach O and the whole team and the whole staff. I thought Saturday's game against Texas A&M was remarkable from start to finish, our offense and our defense. And I thought just it was super special at the beginning, the way that Joe Burrow wore the Cajun spelling of his name.
No,
on his jersey.
you're right. Listen, Amy, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I mean, Joe Burrow has impressed me more than any player I've seen in a very long time. Amy, thank you very, very much. I mentioned a minute ago that I'd heard today that John Daly, who's been a friend of ours on this program and just one of the most just enjoyable people to be around I've ever met, was out there pushing the Lane train to Fayetteville. And I looked down, and John has joined us for a moment to give his opinion. A big Arkansas fan. Of course, he played golf there. John, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you bet, Paul. How you doing?
I am doing great, and I miss seeing you and talking to you, but there's nothing better than to talk to you about Razorback football. And so tell us what you hear and what you think ought to happen.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, you know, I think I would love for Lane to come. We're pretty good friends, and he knows the SEC, you know, better being under Saban and, you know, at Tennessee. And I just think he'd be a great fit. It was, you know, my picks were him, and I was kind of hoping Rex Ryan might have had a chance too.
He is a good guy. I know Rex. Rex would be really – maybe Rex will come as a coordinator.
Well, he said he'd bring his brother, but, you know, I don't know. Those are my two favorite picks, but Lane would just, you know, he would change it probably quicker than most coaches would, and, you know, we got to get the passion back at Arkansas. And
well, John, let me ask you this, because we had a guest on earlier that wondered whether Lane would take the job if offered. You seem to know more than all of us. What do you think?
He's not telling me much. I've just been bugging him for the last 3 or 4 days. Please come to Arkansas. But you know, he's not saying too much about it, but he never said no, and he hasn't said yes. But, you know, I think he's the one that I think can turn our program around, but I feel like it's going to take 3 years. You know, it's just sad to see Arkansas football this way. And I love Chad Morris, and I love Coach Bielema, and it's a shame they couldn't get it done. But, you know, I think Lane can, and we just got to give him time if he does come.
No, John, listen, we always enjoy talking to you, and I think you're saying what you've said publicly makes a big impact. Have you expressed your thoughts to the people that matter at Arkansas?
Oh, yeah, me and Hunter. I've texted Hunter. I gave him Lane's number.
I like that.
He didn't ask for anything. I gave him Rex Ryan and Lane's number, and I said these are the two guys that my personal opinion would be someone that could change the program. But, you know, it just be – I think he was the right guy for the job, and whether he takes it or not, I just want him to know, and he already knows that I'd love for him to come to the Hill and change our program around. But I got a question for you.
Yes.
And it's been bugging me since South Carolina beat Georgia. And South Carolina wasn't ranked at the time they beat Georgia. Now, Alabama gets beat by LSU. Alabama was, 5? And LSU was 1 at the time, or were they 2?
No, Alabama wasn't Alabama number 1 at the time? Or 2?
Well, they might have been number 1. LSU's number 2. But what I don't
they were
understand
1 and 2, I think, or 1 and 3.
Right. So why would Alabama fall out of the top 4? Look, I respect the SEC. Why would they fall out of the top 4 getting beat by the number 2 team when, and no disrespect to Georgia, they're a great football team. South Carolina beats them and they stay in the race.
You know, John, I have raised that question a number of times about why Georgia did not have to pay for that loss, and the experts have told me, and the people on the Bill Hancock, who runs the committee, said it's because of their strength of schedule. They beat Notre Dame, they beat Florida, and they beat somebody else. But I have to say you're right. Maybe even Dabo made that point after the game, even though we had some fun with them. But I mean, now it doesn't make much difference. So, and by the way, they went on the road and beat Auburn, so they have acquitted themselves with a couple of very quality wins. Well, tell me about you. What's been
Oh.
going on with you? Are you? I know that you had some issues around the time of the Open, but are you feeling better?
Yeah, I had knee surgery about 4 weeks ago. They replaced the knee. My kneecap was rotted out. Dr. Moore at Little Rock did my knee surgery. He did the scan about 3 weeks before we did the surgery, or 4 weeks before we did the surgery, and he didn't want to tell me. I couldn't have heard it any worse, so I'm glad he didn't tell me. But the whole kneecap was rotted out.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
I played 3 tournaments on it. Played okay, and then got back, did the surgery. Been 4 weeks tomorrow. They replaced the whole inside of the right knee with titanium and chrome with plastic and the kneecap. So I've been just rehabbing, sitting here in Clearwater, Florida, where it's warm.
Well, listen, John, I appreciate. I happen to be a fan of Lane as well, and no Rex, one of the all-time characters. I'm glad you chimed in on this because I think your voice will carry, and let's see what happens. But come back soon to the show.
Oh, you bet, anytime. And I wish LSU and Georgia the greatest of luck. I root for the SEC if the Hogs aren't in it, and the SEC football, and go Hogs go. And love you, Paul.
John, I feel the same about you. Thank you very, very much. Again, John Daly, the legendary Arkansas golfer, won a couple of majors, won the PGA and the British Open, and one of the most colorful and charismatic athletes to ever play on the PGA Tour, has pretty well endorsed, a full-throated endorsement of Lane Kiffin here to be the next Arkansas football coach. How about that? Right here. We'll take a break. More to come as we continue on a Monday afternoon. So get them off the schedule. Notable changes a day after beating Arkansas. Bama dropped from 1 to 2. LSU beat Arkansas, dropped from 1 to 2. Missouri beat Arkansas, fired Barry Odom. Arkansas has definitely played a role in the SEC this year. And now what's going on? So, again, John Daly endorsing Lane Kiffin to be the next Arkansas coach. Will Hunter Yurachek respond or not is the question du jour. But that was certainly breaking news here, guys.
That was great. I mean, John Daly calling in, big Arkansas fan.
I don't know how he got through.
Yeah, that was the best part. He called the regular number. So
Yeah.
for all those people that say, like, there's a special number, he called the one you see on the bottom of your screen.
Call Paul.
Call Paul. So, Paul, my question is, when you have high-profile fans and other people making cases for coaches, and maybe that coach doesn't work, does that affect a fan base or not?
Normally it would not. I've seen this before, but in this case it may for this reason. This is such a beaten down program where people are not going to games. So if you get a Bobby Bones, who I think has done the same thing, the most influential person in country music, you get John Daly, who has a tremendous following. You can get the powers that be, who may be at an impasse. Remember, they've had 4 or 5 weeks to look over the coaching search. The reason why people aren't moving right now, it's a chess game. A number of coaches are in championship games, including Norvell, including Lane Kiffin, and that could be why nobody has hired a coach yet.
Yeah, from what we're seeing on social media today, Arkansas might have a problem on its hands if it doesn't hire Lane Kiffin, because there seems to be so much enthusiasm for this hypothetical that has kind of spreading. I think it started with some fake accounts, but there's still some smoke there. Not quite enough fire yet, but
listen, I mean, how many times you bring a coach in that doesn't fire up anyone? Lane Kiffin will get everybody fired up.
Right.
Yeah, besides, I was going to ask you, Paul.
He's also got a resume. This guy's coach, he's had 4 head coaching jobs.
Right. Outside of the X's and O's, what do you think the most important attribute a coach has to be successful at Arkansas? Is it that question?
Well, you have to develop talent, because that's not Arkansas is not a place that. Remember last year they came in 20th in recruiting, and that was like the best ever. Yeah. So making the right decisions. So we're back. Glad you're with us. From Pat Dye to John Daly, and the show still has another hour and 40 minutes to go. Let's continue with more phone calls and check in with Gavin in Pittsburgh. Hey, Gavin, you're on the air.
How you doing, Paul? I just wanted to call in. First off, what a great win by my Tigers on Saturday. Auburn really showed me that
they can get behind Gus Malzahn. And that game solidified his spot, and I no longer think he's going to Arkansas anymore.
No, I don't either.
But I called in because I wanted to hear your opinion on Bo Nix. See, I loved him coming out of high school. He was Alabama's Mr. Football. I thought he was going to do great things. We let Joey Gatewood walk into the transfer portal, and I wanted to see your opinion on him and see if, like, in the next 2 years, can he take Auburn to that next level and win us a national championship?
Bo Nix has a chance to be a serious Heisman contender. I mean, he did all this as a freshman. And one thing that you said, and I've had a few Alabama fans tell me, and they weren't joking, that they hate playing in Auburn, and they hate playing in Auburn for the reasons we saw Saturday. They're, for all the LSU, Florida conversation, everyone has a great home field. I mean, I've been to both those. I've been to that stadium for 30, 40 years. I've never seen anything quite like that game in terms of the scene. I mean, it's downright scary. How intimidating
Jordan-Hare's a nasty place to play.
I mean, it's just. I mean, I've never seen Nick Saban look very comfortable in that stadium, and I've seen him walk into Tiger Stadium in the past and look very, very at ease.
Oh yeah, definitely. Nick Saban looked a little rattled after that first half.
He looked more than rattled.
Oh yeah, definitely more than rattled. Anybody can say what they want about that field goal at the end of the second quarter going into halftime, but you know what? What's done is done. We're past that.
That did not win the game for Auburn. I mean, that was. I mean, listen. Alabama's got a 7-minute drive. They get another first down. They punch it in. The game's over. I don't see Auburn.
Yeah.
That's when Bo Nix would have been. I think the pressure would have been just too much. He's a great player, but he's done that before. But that would have been a very difficult thing to do. Mike in Georgia, you're on the air.
Thank you, Paul. I told myself that I was not going to call, that I was simply going to digest everything today and then, hash it for tomorrow. But having John Daly on there got me so excited, I just had to call and thank you all for putting him on. It was fantastic. It was really great. And with Daly, other than Tiger, who's like the Pied Piper, fans follow him everywhere, all over the course, in droves. Daly's got that kind of same personality. I mean, he's beloved. I mean,
hey, Mike, I can't remember the year. It was the early '90s. I guess it was '92 maybe, because Daly won the PGA. I followed John Daly around his first round when I covered Augusta for many years for a newspaper, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I mean, he was bombing at places no one had ever seen. I mean, Tiger had not shown up yet. Remember? I mean, John Daly at Augusta National. I mean, just the idea that this guy who literally lives out of the back of his car showing up at the hallowed ground of Augusta National was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It was great. I was at a practice round and saw him hit some drives, and the sound of that ball, the way it came off the tee. I know they do it regular these days, but at that time it was something new, so it was really great. But anyway, I'm glad you got him on, and if there is a such thing as a special number, Paul, you better give it to him, because it'd be great if he called in anytime.
Oh, no. I mean, he's such a sports fan. I mean, listen, I've had conversation with him, and I'm not getting politics in there, but I mentioned this once before. I was in New York about 2 years ago and ran into Bill Clinton, and we spent 30 minutes talking about Arkansas football and basketball. And, I mean, those are guys that, listen, one's a former president, one's a former PGA great. But when it comes to the passion for that football program, it is unmatched. Hey, thank you very, very much for the call. Great conversation there. Let's check in with Charlie, who is in Alabama. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you.
Going back when I graduated from the University of Alabama back in '76. Followed you early days in Birmingham up to now. So thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it.
I had a couple comments, and then I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Haven't heard anybody really say anything about, this game had, the Alabama-Auburn game had so many twists and turns. Could have gone either way so many different times. But one in particular, I wanted your opinion. When Alabama had the ball first and goal, it was either the 2 or 3 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they throw the ball on first down?
I don't know. I mean that was one of the most peculiar Steve Sarkisian plays of the year. and quite frankly, there have been a few.
Well, you had Najee Harris, who was having an unbelievable day, and it just blew my mind that they didn't try to punch it in at least a play or so. And I thought it was I guess what point I'm making, yeah, it was a terrible coaching decision. It certainly wasn't Mac Jones, but
it was. Charlie, listen, thank you. That's one that I think. If you had to pick a point in the game that Alabama let it go, it was right there, because I think they would have had a 12 or 13 point lead depending on how they handled the conversion. Okay, so what happened over the weekend at Ole Miss following the ugly incident on Thursday night at the Egg Bowl? We'll try to decipher it for you.
It's a hard day, but as we announced yesterday, we've decided to make a change in our football leadership. With the support and consultation of Chancellor Boyce, and after meeting with Coach Luke, we felt that we needed to move forward in a different direction and inject new energy into the program. Following Thursday's game, I spent a couple of days taking a hard look at the totality of Matt's tenure as head coach. While you can see progress in certain areas, we are not experiencing enough success on the field. From a recruiting, academic, and overall culture standpoint, Matt did a tremendous job, and we will always be grateful for his leadership. However, as I said yesterday, winning is important, and we know that we can win at Ole Miss and compete for championships. Another factor was lack of support. Entering the Egg Bowl, we were optimistic that a strong finish to the season could build momentum. However, after stepping away from the emotion of Thursday and evaluating the team as a whole, it was evident that the apathy surrounding the program was too much to overcome. We felt it was important to find new leadership that could take this team to the next level, not only from building on our culture, but also translating to wins on the field. Again, we can't thank Coach Luke enough for stepping into a time when our program was at its lowest point. What he has accomplished here as a student athlete, assistant coach, and head coach will never be forgotten, and we certainly wish him the best moving forward. Our search for a new head coach is underway. We've engaged Ventura Partners to assist in this process of identifying the strongest candidate and the best fit to lead our program. We would prefer a sitting head coach or Power 5 coordinator, but more than anything, we want energy, passion, and a track record for success. We want a program builder who can galvanize and help unite Rebel Nation. As was clear with this season, there's a lot of talent on this roster, and those players in a destination school like Ole Miss, this is a very attractive job, and we look forward to working quickly and efficiently to find our new head coach. Mike McIntyre will take over and be in charge of the team in the interim period. I spoke with him this morning, and he was more than willing to do that. The assistant coaches are on the road right now, and what we've told them is to please just go in and continue the visits, wear the Ole Miss logo, continue to spread the Ole Miss message, and they've been great. The assistants have been great. This is a hard time for them as well, obviously. But absolutely, as we talk to a new coach, we will encourage the new coach to look at this staff. I think this staff has done a tremendous job in a lot of ways. And I think there's some pieces on this staff that could be very beneficial to a new staff, potentially.
So one of the bigger surprises of the postseason, which is only 2 days old, was the firing of Matt Luke on Sunday night. Let's get the whole story from Nick Suss, who covers the Rebels for the Clarion Ledger. Nick, thank you very, very much. Let's try to figure this all out, unpack it, and explain to us what happened and why.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, it kind of started over the weekend. There were rumblings, as there always are, and it seemed as if the court of public opinion had turned against Matt Luke after the Egg Bowl and how hard the loss was for some Ole Miss fans with the circumstances of the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and the missed PAT. And then Keith Carter, the athletic director, pretty much came out and said today that he felt as if the ceiling was met and there was too much fan apathy, and that even if Matt Luke started to turn it around and had 6 or 7 wins next year, he doesn't think that this program would generate the sort of excitement that he needs to run a successful program. So when that happens and when the win-loss record gets worse from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, you start to consider a coaching change. So
didn't he? Hold on a second. Didn't that guy you just quoted say last week that everything was going well?
Yeah, about 10 days ago, he said that Matt Luke was who they were going to be progressing forward with. So obviously something changed, and I asked him today directly what changed, and he pretty much said that it was a sense of he thought more about it and he changed his mind, which people are always entitled to change their mind, but really the only thing that's changed in the last 10 days is Ole Miss lost by 1 point because they missed an extra point that would have sent the game to overtime. There's no telling what would have happened if that game went to overtime or if Ole Miss had made any number of mistakes that they made disappear. But yeah, 10 days ago, Matt Luke was secure in his job, and now he is a free agent on the market.
Okay, Nick, listen, you're a good reporter. I doubt you're taking everyone for face value. What really happened?
What really happened is, Keith came out and said directly that he has not taken any money from boosters for the buyout. So all the people who want to come in and say this was a money issue, it may have been, but the athletic department is maintaining that was not the case. What really happened is I think that fans have really, really not wanted Matt Luke to be here, and they've spoken with, not going to games and not sending in donations and all of that stuff. And what I hear as apathy is that Keith comes from a fundraising background. Ole Miss is at a point where it needs to generate some revenue, it needs to generate some excitement, and I don't think the Matt Luke era, no matter how quickly and how positive it looked that things were going to turn around, that wasn't generating the type of excitement the athletic department wants.
I realize everything in Mississippi is a bit of a chess game, but the fact that Moorhead is staying at Starkville, you help me understand. It almost seems like Ole Miss fans are looking at that as more of an opportunity maybe. Did they say, if he's staying there, we need to get a coach who can beat him?
I think that's entirely possible. If you were following the rumor mill Thursday night, it seemed like it was a done deal that Moorhead was going to be out, win or lose in the Egg Bowl. And then obviously the next day rolls around, Saturday rolls around, whenever it was, and State comes out and says, we are for sure keeping Joe Moorhead on staff as the head coach for another year. So everything is based around this Egg Bowl competition.
And by the way, why are they keeping him other than winning a game that seems inconsequential outside of in terms of the program? It's not going to help him undo some of the mistakes he's made. It's just a game against a 4-8 team.
The logical answer would be to say that he's gone to bowls 2 years in a row, but the emotional answer is he won the Egg Bowl. And just like Matt Luke in 2017, he won the Egg Bowl when he was the interim coach, and then a couple of days later he gets the full-time job. There is something about that game in this state that people can really sway their emotions based off of it.
And by the way, I don't want to act like I'm living in another planet. I understand the importance of that game. If they had just lost the game and we didn't have the dog urination incident afterwards, you think Matt Luke would still be there? Do you think that was the moment that people just were so appalled by?
Personally, I think that's a strong possibility. I don't know if it was the incident or the missed PAT or the combination of both, but just the way those final 10 minutes of the game went down, where you pull the quarterback who's the most popular player on the team to bring in a guy who you'd benched 8 weeks ago, and he leads the comeback and things look good, and then you let the comeback disappear in what has to have been the only time a game has ever ended like that in the 150 years of college football. I don't know. I think that if they had lost in a more conventional way, maybe Keith would have kept pat with the company line he had 10 days ago. But if he truly believes the arguments he came out and said today, the apathy and the win-loss record, those would have been absolutely the same now as they were before the Egg Bowl.
Okay. Who's on the list of potential candidates to replace Matt?
The top name that everybody's throwing around is Mike Norvell out at Memphis, and obviously he's going to be a hot commodity this season with schools like Florida State showing some interest in him as well. But since Ole Miss is right up the road, or right down the road, I guess, from Memphis, Ole Miss seems to think they might have an inside track in attracting Norvell. If it's not him, Billy Napier's name has been thrown around a lot from University of Louisiana, and then you'll hear Eli Drinkwitz from App State and Bill Clark from UAB and Willie Fritz from Tulane. Most of the high-producing G5 coaches that you'd think are having their names thrown around, but it seems like at this point Norvell is the A1 choice from the Ole Miss perspective.
What's the feeling on Norvell other than his name is being mentioned for every job in America? I mean, I realize Ole Miss thinks they have an inside track, but where else is he linked to? I mean, I've heard him at FSU, Arkansas, and who knows where else.
Yeah, I can't speak too much for why Florida State or why Arkansas think it would be a good fit, but from covering Ole Miss, it seems like they like his connection to the area since he's recruited the Memphis area and the North Mississippi area. That really is Ole Miss's pipeline and offensive success from his days in the Pac-12 and also succeeding at Memphis. And the number one qualification they want is experience as a head coach, which is something that Matt Luke lacked before he took the job at Ole Miss, and maybe that was what some fans are blaming Luke's lack of success on.
Well, Mississippi never disappoints.
Yes, that is very true, Paul.
Nick, thanks a lot. We'll stay in touch as this coaching search unfolds. Always great to talk to you.
All right, thanks, Paul.
You got it, Nick Suss, great reporter down there in Mississippi on how things changed very quickly in Mississippi. We are heading to a break. More of your phone calls after this. Miss job, what about it? Guys, I want to get your opinion on the worth of this job.
That's a good question. I mean, that's a bigger question than who's going to take it almost at this point.
You have, Paul, you've mentioned it before. You have like Archie Manning back there. You have the legacy. You've had winning recently within the last, couple years, beating Alabama twice in the Nick Saban era. So you have some tradition that you can try to build off of from there. Who do you go after? I mean, we heard in the presser before Nick came on that they're looking for an established coach or a Power 5 assistant that has a dynamic personality. Does anybody stick out in your mind?
Listen, I did a show in Memphis today, and Norvell really can choose wherever he wants to go or stay in Memphis. I mean, let's be honest. If you're in Memphis right now, why do you go to Ole Miss or Arkansas?
Well, I think if you're in
Power
Memphis,
5, it's the SEC.
Yeah, but come on.
Your recruiting base is the same.
How successful have people been going to Arkansas lately?
Fair enough. But
I think that Chad Morris hire was
my point
just bad
being,
anyway.
if he doesn't get FSU, he could wait for another job to come open. And I mean, I think you have to be smart. Ole Miss is not a sure thing.
No, but it's a chance to be on the national stage in a much bigger way than you're ever going to be with
The guy just had
Memphis.
College Game Day downtown. They had 20,000 people. I mean, all I'm saying is Memphis is a pretty good job. He may be playing Alabama in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't that just the kind of the ceiling for Memphis? I mean, that's as good as it's going to get.
Well, my point is, it may be the ceiling for Memphis, but if you're a good coach, you go where you want to go. If you're this guy versus oh, hey, there's a job opening in Ole Miss, I'll go grab it and have to deal with LSU and A&M and Alabama every year.
There's pretty much everything to love about the Ole Miss job except the fact that it's the competition in the SEC West, right? Like I would say Florida State's a more desirable destination just because you only have to go.
There's no question.
Keep one team.
You just have to finally wonder how good are these jobs.
But it's a Power 5 job in the SEC.
Listen,
Granted,
I'm aware. Thanks for the.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you're at Memphis and you're right, this could be the ceiling for Memphis. Whereas if you're
Memphis
given time,
is a pretty good athletic program right now in basketball and football, and it's it's not because I'm from there, but you don't have to answer to too many fat cat boosters who got Matt Luke fired. Anyway, welcome back. Glad everyone is here. And let's continue with your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Pate is up next in Oxford, Mississippi. Pate, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you.
So I was just calling. Nick kind of hit on it a lot. I wanted to get your opinion on the coaching situation at Ole Miss. Do you think that was handled correctly to get rid of Coach Matt Luke at this point after this season, or would you have rather seen him wait until next season? What are the pros and cons of that situation?
Well, listen, there's no good. I've always been a big believer when the worm turns, make a change. don't wait till next year what you can do this year, because you're losing 2 years. You're losing a recruiting class. And, again, Mississippi State made the decision they wanted to make. Vanderbilt made the decision. South Carolina. A year from today, let's see how all three of those work out, okay? But Ole Miss, as much as I like Matt Luke personally, he still went 4-8.
Yeah.
And that's hard to live with.
Yeah, I've been the word around campus and everything, as Nick said, Mike Norvell out of Memphis, Mike Leach, Washington State. I've even heard Les Miles coming back to the SEC.
No, let's not get
Kansas.
crazy here, okay?
I've even heard that today. I mean, there's all
No,
kinds.
well, listen, if you
heard.
heard Les Miles, you were in a bar at closing time.
Well, Arkansas, as much as they hear want Lane Kiffin, I mean, that's the word around here too. So, I mean, it's really anybody's ball game, I guess, from a campus perspective.
Glad to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Good stuff. Let's continue. I-Man is up next. I-Man, welcome to our program.
Good afternoon, Paul. I mean, are y'all on this time every day? I mean, is this something regular?
No, we're on Monday. This is we're the show on that's only on Monday.
Only on Monday. I mean, I was flipping the channels. I mean, I just run across it, and I thought I knew you, and I thought this was an Alabama program, but I don't see no Alabama fans. You know, Paul, what a hell of a ball game. That was one for the ages. I could rub it in, and I could say a lot of things, but I'm not going to do it because I respect my brothers and my sisters who happen to be Alabama fans. They have no respect for anybody, but I do. And you know what, Paul? I could run down there and get me one, but I'd rather walk down and get them all. War damn Eagle. Paul, do Auburn fans really have to have Alabama's permission to celebrate?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Where are the Alabama fans today?
I mean, I'm not poking.
I mean, we had one or two that gave the usual.
But, I mean, normally they're in here talking about the playoffs and that kind of thing. I mean, I figured there'd be more playoff conversations.
Well, you heard the one that said, "We'll be fine." Got Nick Saban.
Well, I mean, last I heard, Friday and Thursday and Wednesday, going backwards, because I can actually do that instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I mean, I thought Bama was going to make a statement. They made one. They can't count to 11. You don't know what 1 second is. And you go out there and you play back and forth, you play back and forth, you play back and forth. When the zeros are on the damn clock, guess what that means? Game over. 48-45. 48 points. 48 points. That's damn near half 100. 100, Paul.
By the way, I don't know if I told you this. I thoroughly enjoyed seeing you on Friday.
I had the best time over there seeing you.
We
Paul.
had a long
appreciate
conversation,
you so much.
and I finally, when the security came over and said, "You want me to remove that man from the premises?" I said, "No, he's a friend."
I didn't have one of them badges. I mean, every time I turned around, I noticed everybody had a damn badge around their neck but me. Next time I see you, I'm going to have me one. War damn Eagle, Paul. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much. Harold is up next on our Monday night show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Finebaum.
Hello,
and
Harold.
I really appreciate you calling me, letting me get on your air.
I'm glad you made it.
I don't have that personality of I-Man and some of your other callers, but I'm one of your oldest. I'm the old 93-year-old
Oh, my goodness.
World War II Navy
I remember
veteran
you.
and an LSU alumnus.
I'm thrilled you called.
And I've got a prediction on who I think the Final Four and where they play. I've got LSU and Clemson playing in Atlanta on December the 28th, and Ohio State, I'm projecting Oklahoma to slip in as the number 4 team, and that's provided we beat Georgia on this Saturday. I think we're a little better, but, that's not a neutral field where we're playing Saturday.
No, it's
It would
not.
be neutral if we were playing anybody except Georgia, but it's kind of a home field, the second home field for Georgia.
There's no question it is.
Well, What do you think? What do you think's going to happen this Saturday in Atlanta? And I'm going to hang up and see what you think about my projection on the Final Four. And I appreciate your call.
Thank
Have a
you
good
very,
day.
very much, Harold. That is fantastic. Great to have you on. Okay, imagine 93-year-old veteran. That definitely gets me going there. Pete is up next in Louisiana. Hey, Pete. Pete, you there?
Hey, yeah, how you doing?
We're doing great.
Fantastic. Paul, I just wanted to make a comment for you. I'm a first-time caller, and I was listening to you earlier, and when you made the comment about Clemson, in your opinion, probably being one of the strongest, if not the strongest team in the Final Four, and that the other three teams probably would not be looking forward to playing against them. And I got to kind of take exception to that because I think Clemson really has been highly overrated and probably shouldn't be ranked more than about 7th or 8th, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I know they're undefeated, but they come from the weakest conference out of the Power 5. And, you know, you look at the last 2 or 3 years, they've only had to prepare for 1 or 2 teams each year, and that's in the semifinals or the finals.
They've done pretty well in those games.
And I think if Clemson played as a member of the Southeastern Conference or a member of the Big Ten, they probably wouldn't do better than 8-4 or 9-3 any year that they played.
Now, Pete, listen, you're forcing me to do something I don't want to do, and that's defend Clemson. Do you have any idea what their record is against the SEC in the last 4 or 5 years?
I'm not really sure.
I'll tell you what it is.
They've
beaten every team but Alabama.
Other than playing Alabama,
they have destroyed. They've destroyed South Carolina. They beat LSU a couple of years ago. They beat Georgia. Come on. I'm not going to sit here and let somebody trash Clemson's resume when it's as good as anyone in the country, and maybe better. I know it's fun to say that, and I've joked about Dabo, but they can back it up at Clemson. So these are some of the openings you can see on the screen. I think I missed the Boston College firing yesterday, but that's okay. So what about it, guys? Seen jobs you like?
No, Boston College, no pressure. I can't believe they fired Adazio. I mean, he goes 7-6 every year. What do you want in Boston College?
I missed that one too. Boston College thinks there's something really special.
Well, so does Florida State. That's my question.
Florida State has a resume.
Boston
College has one play.
25 years ago.
True.
You'll never forget it.
True.
By the way, I think it's 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30.
Flutie.
Wow, bad math by Brams.
They have two. Their Hall of Fame consists of Flutie and a kicker who beat Notre Dame in '93.
Don't sleep on Matt Ryan. Come on now.
I was at that Notre Dame game, Mark.
Were you really?
Yes, I was.
Wow, you've never told me this.
Yeah. I just decided a couple of friends of mine were flying up, and I caught some flack from my newspaper because I think it was the same day as the Auburn-Georgia game. But I said, you know what? I'm going to the biggest game in the country.
Yeah. It's a hard memory.
Why not?
So where do you, Paul, if you were sitting here, now you've heard the
same.
same.
Notre Dame, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. I was.
That was a good team. Florida State, they beat an unstoppable Florida State team. And they gave Bobby Bowden the title just because he's Bobby Bowden. Anyway, so what happens to Florida State then, Paul? Like, is this any job? I mean, we've heard Mike Norvell's name. We've heard James Franklin. We've heard Brian Kelly. Is this a job where, anybody can come in and can win automatically, or is this a rebuild that we have to look at from
I think Florida State is salvageable. They have issues, but they also have tremendous fan support, and Florida State's in a pretty good spot. I mean, Florida State plays in the same conference as Clemson. Don't forget that. We used to say the same thing about Florida State and Bobby Bowden that we're now saying about Dabo.
Right.
That they had a 1 or 2 game season.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes it the most attractive job for me is just the bar is low to get going and get, you can have a couple of seasons where you challenge Clemson, don't even have to beat them, and you'll be okay.
Right. I mean, 8-4 at Florida State next year, is that a big turnaround? Is that what they want?
Not bad. By the way, Georgia beat Clemson in 14, I believe. Clemson beat Georgia in 13. Just I don't want anybody to be upset about that.
Bang.
Welcome back. We're glad you're here, and what a show it's been, and appreciate all of you joining us. Let's get going with some more phone calls, and Pete is in Mississippi. Pete, welcome to the show. Pete, you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you for the call.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say about Pat Sullivan and what a great guy he was, and a friend of mine. And I know him.
Of course I do.
And just played a lot of golf with him and talked a lot of football with him. But I'm just an old Mississippi guy that's been coaching for 42 years, and I just wanted to kind of weigh in on the Matt Luke situation. And being from Mississippi, I don't have a dog in the hunt, so to speak, but I played at Mississippi College, a small school, but it just really kind of bothers me about this Ole Miss situation and Matt Luke, because I recruited Matt out of high school, and I've been to several practices. I know several guys on his staff, and just really, really disappointed in the way Ole Miss has handled this. And if they want to fire the guy, that's fine. I mean, I've been fired myself, and so, but I think the biggest thing I want to say, Paul, is just the arrogance of Ole Miss. And that's what, and I'm just giving my personal opinion, which doesn't mean anything, but, they have an arrogance about them that's like Alabama, but they got a Vanderbilt trophy case. And so
I love that.
just to that, but just, I'm not sure when they've been relevant since Johnny Vaught was there, when they hadn't been cheating. And so, to take a guy like Matt Luke, and to me, what I think I know, which is not much, but, they were embarrassed, because I know a lot of Ole Miss people. They were embarrassed with the guy doing the dog peeing thing, and then they lost the game. Had they won the game, this probably never would have happened. But and then I think just the knowing the Ole Miss people like I do, that they just kept hammering and hammering the new chancellor until he caved in and made a change. But I really pulled for Matt Luke, and the other guy I pulled for when he was at Ole Miss was David Cutcliffe, and those are two class acts. And I think somewhere in this business we have lost kind of sight of what people do.
Well, Coach, you make some really good points, and I think it's always difficult when it's personal, and obviously with you it is because of your association, but you also have because I know you have a career in intercollegiate athletics, and you have seen it all. And I think your point about Ole Miss, particularly about who they think they are, is maybe the most important. This is a program that has not been overly successful, and I thought it was particularly interesting. Saturday and Sunday, Barry Odom, Missouri guy, gets fired.
Right.
Matt Luke, Ole Miss legend and legacy, fired. And the thing that bothers me the most, and you may know this because I don't know it for a fact, but I read somewhere today that he was fired while he was doing an in-home visit with a recruit.
Well, Paul, I saw that as well, and I saw it earlier this morning, and then I heard it again on your show. I don't know that for a fact.
I don't either, but if that's the case.
But if that's the case, to me that shows just how classless things can get in this business.
No doubt. No doubt at all. Well, listen, what a pleasure to visit with you, and especially to get your insight.
Well, and, the thing that, I'll just add one more thing to it, that I'm still coaching, and, we've had some kids be highly recruited, and I'm coaching at a high school now. And, just people, we had a kid that went to Georgia last year and went to LSU, and, people in the state were like, well, we got to keep these kids in and keep these, this and that. And I'm talking about Ole Miss fans. And just, there is a different level out there. And that's your Alabamas, your Georgias, your LSUs, and that type stuff. And, and I don't know that people can really see that in this state because they're somewhat kind of blind. I personally think that, if you win 7 or 8 games at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and hit a 10 or 11 win season sometimes, you've done a tremendous job. Dan Mullen did a great job at at Mississippi State. And, they've had guys at Ole Miss do a great job. But I just think, to kind of quote, I guess, Rick Neuheisel, when the expectations outweigh the commitment, now you've got a problem. So, but I appreciate your show, Paul, and I appreciate your friendship, and hopefully we'll get together soon.
I look forward to it. Coach, thank you. A pleasure to hear from you. We really appreciate it. We're up against a break. More to come on a Monday night.
Really good to have a press conference today. What a great night at Tiger Stadium. I want to thank all the fans from the Tiger Walk all the way to the end of the stadium. What a great night for our 15 seniors. They did a tremendous job of sending them off the right way. I said this before, I do believe our fans were the difference in our season this year. Getting to play Florida at home, getting to play Auburn at home, those guys were the difference in some tight ball games, and I really, really appreciate our fans in Tiger Stadium on Saturday night. Defense had our best night, 6 sacks, 169 total yards, 2 for 13 on third down, and forced them to punt on the first 7 possessions. We wanted to start fast. I told Coach Arena this morning, I thought it was his best job all year. Our defensive coaches, our players, with an attacking scheme. I thought our DBs contested all the routes, especially against some wide receivers that they give us a tough time next year. Very proud of our defensive staff and all our players. On offense, just got to mention these things. I usually don't, but I think it's time to mention them, give our guys credit where credit's due. LSU record for points in the season, 584. Scored 50 points, a record 6 times. 40 or more points 10 times, school record. Joe said the SEC passing record, tied for passing TDs. Joe has the it factor. He has it. He walks on the field, he has it. He wants the ball in his hand, he wants to make the play. I think that's a combination of smarts, it's a combination of grits, it's a combination of being prepared and being an excellent athlete. I mean, that guys can move with his feet, and we don't even use him half as much as we can running the football. I think that all those combined, and Joe's very confident. He's very smart. He knows the offense. He calls the protections. He's smart enough he can call the plays. He has a great relationship with his receivers. They can break routes. They can break plays. So all those things combined gives him. It's like playing in the backyard to him. Just like when we used to play like backyard to the kids. He has confidence that he can make a play.
Ed, are you confident that no matter what happens Saturday, that you are in the playoff?
No, I ain't even thinking about it. We're not buying into that at all. We got to win. I don't know if we got to win to get in the playoffs or not. I'm not even talking about that. Our goal is to beat Georgia and win the SEC, and then let's see what happens. So that's not coming into play. We're not talking about that, and we're not even considering it right now.
Welcome back. We are rolling along here on a Friday. No, is it Friday already? Why am I thinking about getting this week over with? Man, I've missed it by one day before. I've never missed it by 5. I think it's time for me to step down. Let's, man. You can tell my mind is focused on the program right now. Kyle is in Arkansas. You're on the air. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Paul. How are you doing?
We're doing great.
Hey, well, I just wanted to, obviously the state of Arkansas football is across the entire state. It's just a train wreck, really. The outlook on everything. And if we didn't have baseball and basketball, honestly, we'd probably not be in a good situation. Probably riots everywhere. But what I wanted to reiterate is the coaching search. This is a super important decision. And even besides just getting the right guy for the job. We need to establish an overall culture, to where you get the whole state behind you, get all the players behind you, and Hunter Yurchek has a job ahead of him to select the right guy. And even me, I thought Chad Morris was going to be the answer for that, but he really fooled us all coming in here. But so I just want to get your thoughts on what it's going to take to turn this program around.
Well, I think the simple answer is to get the right coach. I mean, as painful as this sounds, you have to hit the restart button. Chad did a couple of good things, but when you don't get the product turned around on the field, it doesn't matter what you say or do. So it's going to be more difficult this time around to hear the same sales pitch, but that's all you can do. John Daly made a point to me off the air after his call, which is interesting. He really believes strongly in Houston Nutt returning as an ambassador. Now, I don't know, because I don't live in Arkansas, what impact that would have. But I think sometimes you have to get everyone to coalesce and to circle the wagons. Pat Dye made that point about Auburn. Nobody was making that point before the game, but they are making the point now. Shannon is in Georgia. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. Thank you for taking my call. You sound great.
I after 3.5 weeks, I feel like a brand new man.
Yeah, it didn't take long, did it? Hey, Paul, I am just baffled by Mississippi State's decision to keep Moorhead after the results of that Egg Bowl game. Mississippi State did not win that game because of anything that Moorhead did. They won that game because of everything that Ole Miss did. They had a 14-point lead. They give it up. They give up a 4th and 24 at the end of the game. Ole Miss really should have sent that game to overtime, and had it not been for that decision of the kid to celebrate the way he did, Ole Miss probably wins that game. And so why retain a guy who hasn't performed up to par just because the other team performed worse?
Well, I think it's because the athletic director in particular had dug his heels in to support Moorhead, which was his hire. And I'm guessing that the president decided, you know what, we won the biggest game of the year. Let's give this guy one more shot and see what he can do. I don't think it was a compelling argument, but you and I both know how important the Egg Bowl is. And if you let one game determine whether you should hire or fire a coach, then it's self-explanatory. Ole Miss let that happen 2 years ago. But based on Matt Luke's win in the Egg Bowl, Russ Bjork hired him, and he got fired Sunday. So I frankly think you have to believe that coach is going to be there for a couple of years. If you think a year from now you're going to be making the same decision on whether to hire or fire him, you've already made your decision.
And here's the other thing, Paul. I keep hearing all these coaches in press conferences or in interviews beating their chest, thumping their chest, saying, I am the man for this job. This is my program. I heard Moorhead say it.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Drag me. Paul, if you're the man for the job, you don't have to go around and tell people you're the man for the job.
I totally agree with you on that. And listen, I've been criticized for being hard on Joe Moorhead. I think he's a perfectly nice man. I just think he's a weird fit for Mississippi State. And
well, he's not. I have a coaching background for several years on the high school level, and it's important that you fit in the community.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
And being a Georgia fan and a native Georgian, I can see where Moorhead, because I've been to Starkville on several occasions, would have a hard time just fitting in that community. And I'm not nothing against where he's from.
Hey, Shannon, I love going to Starkville. I have a couple of really good friends that have worked there and have been part of it. But when you parachute in from New York or Pittsburgh or wherever he's from, I think he's from Pittsburgh. You have to embrace it. You have to work hard at it. I mean, Nick Saban is from West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing pretty well in Alabama. Gus Malzahn's from Arkansas. He's done quite well where he is. It doesn't matter where you're from. It matters how you deal with the people around you. And Moorhead's resume is pretty incomplete right now. But if the management of that university wants to keep him there, they're perfectly welcome to. We'll take a break. Back with much more after this. Comeback belongs to Auburn. What about it? Look at those Tigers. They've done pretty well. Remember all those fans upset about Joey Gatewood a couple weeks ago? Where are you right now? That was just, 3 weeks ago? If I'm going to Vegas, I'm taking Gus Malzahn with me. What about you guys?
As long as he's got that horseshoe with him, I'm down.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, on that play calling.
We're eating at the Waffle House, smothered over.
Yeah.
I bet you Gus would formulate a great game plan to be in Vegas. There'd be trick plays in there. Hey, we're going to go here. I would be a big fan.
Would he tailor his Vegas game plan to the strengths of the group of
He'd have to.
friends that he brought with him?
He'd
Though
have
I don't
to.
know. Yeah.
You better not try to fake out the guy. What do they call the guy in the
pit boss?
The pit boss.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. The pit boss will be saying that's unfair. That's unfair.
Louis,
counting cards. What are you doing? That's
escort
completely
that
unfair.
man out to the street.
Paul, if you're on the bowl committee and you're looking at what Auburn has done, and you know what the injuries to Tua and Mac Jones, if you're picking the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, I know it's a 3-loss team, and a 3-loss team has never made the New Year's Six, but if you had to choose, would you take Auburn over Alabama?
Well, I mean, you got to think about television. But you know what? I don't want Alabama in my bowl because half the players won't show up, and the fans won't either. And I know Alabama fans are going to scream and holler, but Alabama fans aren't excited by this bowl game.
No.
For the most part, they haven't really shown up today to talk about what happened on Saturday.
Where's Jerome?
Yeah.
Where's Bobby?
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby.
Auburn fans seem fired up.
Where's Kiss the Ring? Where's Larry?
They're kissing the ring that Malzahn keeps in his back pocket.
Yeah, Larry from Shelby, thought we'd hear from him, but
well, to Larry's credit, he knew they were going to lose. Welcome back. Let's continue with more phone calls here. And PJ is in Georgia. Hey, PJ.
Hey, Paul.
How are you, man?
Good, you? Do you think Georgia has a chance of winning the SEC championship, and what are the odds of LSU getting in if they lose?
I think LSU gets in whether they win or lose, which may be the key to Georgia winning. And I don't mean this disparagingly toward LSU, but it is difficult. I mean, I know it's the SEC championship game, but they've already had a perfect season. They've got a spot cinched. Georgia has a little bit more to play for.
Yeah. Do you have a prediction of the score?
Not yet. I would like to know who's going to be lining up for Georgia, wouldn't you?
Yes.
I want to know what Swift's condition is. I know Kirby said he's okay. I mean, Georgia's coming into this game about as shorthanded as you can be, especially with the Pickens suspension for the first half.
Yeah, and we're not for sure yet, but about DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know about Swift. That's the one that really is important to me. Hey, thank you for the call, PJ. Let's go from a 14-year-old to a 13-year-old. Combined age, Hello? 27. Noah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing great. Glad you called.
Just to set the record straight, I'm a Dogs fan, but my question for you was, do you think that Auburn, by any chance, could go to the college football playoff? I mean, they do have those 2 losses, but they do have arguably one of the best quality wins by any team this season.
Well, they do. I mean, somebody made a point yesterday. If this were an 18 playoff, Auburn should be in, and I agree. I don't think they can make a case with 3 losses for the 14 playoff. I just think you're having to knock out. I mean, would I rather see Auburn in it? Do I think Auburn deserves to be in there more than Oklahoma or Utah? Yes, but it's a pretty big hill to climb. Hey, thank you very, very much for the call. Harry is up next in New Orleans. Hello, Harry.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Paul, can you share with me if you have any, a couple of your theories as to when maybe these defenses are going to get back on track? And I grew up appreciating defense, watched a lot of games in the end zones just to be able to see the gaps in the line play. But I'm just wondering if we're ever going to get back to seeing really great defensive football.
High-octane offenses, Harry, do affect defenses. Coaches tell me all the time, especially old-school coaches, that when you're practicing against that, it affects you. It affects your toughness. And I think you finally saw the turnaround at LSU last Saturday night, but it took 12 games.
Yeah, I think, and the announcers at the Alabama game made the point that these defenses can't stay on the field 4 hours like that. It just takes something out of them. I just always wondered whether recently, the last few years, coaches were putting their better players on offense as opposed to years ago. I know Coach Bryan always liked to put his best athletes on defense. So I don't know. I'm just scratching my head wondering if we'll ever see great defensive football again. Paul?
Everything is cyclical, Harry. Thanks for the call. Alex is in Orlando. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Good, good. So today, Paul, I want to talk to you about, we talked before about the transparency of the committee. And this last ranking show, Reese brought up the question of what does the term unequivocal mean to the committee?
Right. That's a big word.
It's a term that's always thrown around. And he didn't really give a true answer, and I'm so confused. But the other term I'm confused on is when they say eye test. What is an eye test? To me, that sounds more just like you're looking at a game, an opinion of what you think in the moment. Because like you ask me, I look at Alabama, and I still would say, wow, that probably is still probably one of the best 5 teams in the nation based on the offensive output they had. But what is an eye test?
Well, an eye test is a bunch of coaches sitting around a room looking at game film going, look, Alabama is probably the best case for that. Those guys are more physical, they're elite athletes, and there's no way Utah is better than they are. I think that's what they're talking about. Unequivocal is the most difficult word to describe, but I think what they mean by unequivocal is this. If you have Alabama without a division title or a conference title, and you have Oklahoma and Utah, and they're even, and one has the conference title, how do you make the argument, a moot point now, but how do you make the argument that Alabama is unequivocally better?
Right, but the problem is, Paul, the fact that you say you think, and we don't know. And that's what we need to know. So I'm hoping.
I'm telling you right now, Georgia was, in my mind, was unequivocally better than Oklahoma last year. But they got left home because they had 2 losses, one of them very bad against LSU.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that. But it just seems like it's confusing as to what they really mean and what that term means when it comes to ranking these teams in that room. And I hope that we can get a little more insight this Sunday from Rob Mullins.
Well, listen, Rob will do his best, and I'm afraid you'll be disappointed.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, all right, Paul, you guys have a good evening. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. We've had a fun show. We had an epic conversation earlier with the legendary Hall of Fame coach Pat Dye, and for those who may have missed the beginning of the show, we want to share some of that with you. Okay, welcome back to the program. There's nobody I'd rather talk to after an Iron Bowl than our next guest, the legendary Hall of Fame coach Pat Dye. Coach, first of all, good afternoon. Hope all is well. I know I know the last couple of weeks have been up and down for everybody, but especially you health-wise, but I hope you're feeling better.
Well, I got an issue that I have to deal with, and that's what we're doing. It's just getting old ain't for sissies, Paul.
Well, before we get into the game, I do want to ask you about someone that served under you and really is the embodiment of Auburn football. That's Pat Dye, who passed away. Pat Sullivan, who passed away.
Well, Pat was an icon at Auburn. You put him in the same category with a Bo Jackson, a Charles Barkley, as far as an athlete and somebody that he touched the whole Auburn family, and he's just such he had the it factor. He had the it factor on the football field when he was playing, and he was just one of those guys that's got a magical personality, and everybody loved him, and he loved everybody. I mean, it was and that all bundled into a man that was highly competitive, and just a great guy. And I know you've already said it, but my prayers and love goes to Gene and the family and all of his friends and the Auburn family itself, because we're all grieving about it. Well, and so just one of those things that we faced. If you live long enough, you have to go through some of these times, and we're in one of them. Right. And it comes right on the heels of probably one of the greatest wins in Auburn football history.
Yeah, and I want to. Yeah, I mean, I want to ask you about that, and certainly I appreciate what you said about Coach Sullivan. I mean, you've been part of epic Iron Bowls. I didn't think I'd ever see anything quite like some of the ones that you took place in, but it seems like every couple of years we get one that tops the other one. But Coach, have you ever seen anything like this one?
No. And Paul, it was 10 league changes, and the most points we had given up in a ball game this year, I think, was in the 20s, and we give up 45 points Saturday, and the same thing probably true about Alabama, because we score 48 and you don't score. I think that's the most points that's ever been scored against Nick.
Yes, that is correct.
Alabama, and it was a crazy game, but a great football game, and. The ebb and flow of the game from one side to the other, and Alabama's got a good football team, and it was just as a classic, and one that people will remember forever. And that it changes the dynamics at Alabama, but it also changes the dynamics at Auburn. Because we want to go to a good bowl game, and we deserve to go to a good bowl game. All you have to do is look at our resume, and from a standpoint, I know we lost 3 games, but that being said, we also beat some great football teams along the way, and it's an exciting football team, and one that deserves to go to, like I said, to a major bowl, and of course Alabama's sitting there with a record that's actually better than ours, but we just got through beating them. Here's an interesting thing: the cumulative record at Auburn, we're number 2 nationally, winning 86 and losing 46, and Alabama is 98. They've won 66 and lost 66. Now, which one did you rather have as a bowl team? Huh?
That's true. No, it's a good point.
I think Alabama's beaten one team with a winning
No,
record.
listen, I don't think there's any question. I'd take Auburn because they're enthusiastic, and you know what it's like going to a bowl game after losing that game?
Yeah, I do, and I hadn't thought about that, Paul. And but the Coach Malzahn is. I hope that he'll get some of the people that you talked about earlier in your show off his back. Now, I know that he's got some of the same people that you talked about that he's got 100% support from them. And really and truly, if you look at the whole body of work, now it's been some funky things that have gone on, but right now he's got our program in as good a shape as it could possibly be in. And if we can recruit around the quarterback, we got a national championship caliber quarterback, and we're in good shape going forward as far as our football program is concerned. And Coach Malzahn is running the show, and he deserves a lot more credit. But he's not the kind of guy that's going to go out and have a false face on and try to impress people and meet people and so on and so forth. He is what he is from a standpoint of personality, and he's not going to cater to all of the people that want to be catered to. And one of the main things that a head football coach at a major college has got to do is pick and choose who his friends are, because them same friends will, they'll turn sour in a heartbeat when things go south. And I just hope that our fan base and the powers that be that you talked about, that we can all fall in behind Coach Malzahn. And I say him because, the same people love Auburn, and they love the assistant coaches, but just the least little thing raises the hairs, and it's his fault, and it's so. It's a time for us to come together, and it couldn't be a better time than right now.
Coach, let me ask you about something else, because, I feel like you're the best person in the world to answer this question. You came to Auburn at a time when Coach Bryant was at the top of the world, and we all know what happened in recruiting with a number of players, Ben, Tamburello, Bo, and then the next year you beat him, and a couple of weeks later, he had retired, and really his reign was over. I'm asking about Nick Saban, and I want you to just kind of give us some insight into what happens to a coach like him. He is. We all know who he is. We all know how great he is. But there just seem to be signs that maybe that window is starting to come down a little bit.
Well, I do know this: the older you get, the harder it gets for you to travel and compete, with the younger guys. Now, and that's just a fact. And I think Coach Bryant saw that with me coming to Auburn. I was 41 years old, and I was working day and night, and he was wanting to go to Indian Hills and have a toddy or two and play poker for a couple of hours, and then go home and come back to the office the next day. But he had his program on automatic. It was running itself, and it was working. So and I guess every one of them are different. But we're at a great place at Auburn right now, in my opinion. If we just don't screw it up, and we do have a history of screwing it up. We just need to come together as a total family, not just portions and parts and factions. And the whole school needs to get behind Coach Malzahn and the athletics. And we went to the thing in baseball last year. We went to the Final Four in basketball, and there's a lot of great things that are happening in Auburn right now, and it's a great place to be.
Well, listen, you know it better than that thing. Well, why does Auburn? I don't mean this to come out the wrong way, but why does Auburn always seem like they screw it up?
Well, I tell you why. And it's if you had two children, you would know how to raise them better than anybody. but you might have a brother or a sister or your mama or your daddy or your granddaddy or a close friend that might think he knows how to raise your children better than you do. In other words, it's not a mean, vicious thing. It's a love thing, because they love Auburn so much, they think they know what's best for Auburn, and they got people in place down there to make decisions. And if they stumble just a itty little bit, it hurts because they care, not because they don't care. It hurts because they do care, and it's I've watched it with myself, with Tommy, with Coach Malzahn, and that may be true in some other places, but they've had.
Listen, we saw a coach win a national championship, and he was gone 2 years later.
Yeah. Well, he really and truly, in my opinion, now he took the bullet for a couple of assistant coaches that he wouldn't fire or didn't fire, and that's what got Gene. I mean, and there's things that were going on that could not go on in an athletic department, and so. Yeah, I mean, and you'll maybe have to talk to him about it sometime.
Oh, I have. I mean, listen, I'm just pointing out that if you don't know what's going on there, it looks strange from a distance, but that's always been the way Auburn runs.
Yeah. Well, we all got problems that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and right now we've got to. In my opinion, we're on the right track.
Coach, as someone who was part of ending the career of at the time the greatest coach in college football history, who was your boss and friend for 9 years at Alabama, do you see signs that Auburn now with this win could? I mean, they've already hung in there with Alabama, but how dramatic of a moment could this be? With a coach who's 68 on the other side, and Auburn with a young coach who has a really good contract and a lot of momentum, and as you said, a great quarterback.
Well, I base it on recruiting, and I can't really vouch because I'm closer to the defensive staff than I am the offensive staff at Auburn. But I do know for a fact that we are recruiting the kind of kids on defense that you can win national championships with, and hopefully we can get into that same recruiting mode on the offensive side of the football. Our best receiver got hurt on first play of the ball game Saturday, and or maybe not the best, but the most dangerous, and so it's. We're going to have to make over our offensive line next year. We lose 4 out of 5 starters across there, but the offensive line coach thinks that the ones that are going to replace them are better athletes than the ones that are graduating and leading, more talent. So I don't know. It's just if we can, and just like I said, if we can surround Bo Nix with the right kind of people, and he hadn't thrown an interception since the LSU game. He's thrown 167 passes without an interception, and he's the real thing.
Well, Coach, listen, come back soon. We always enjoy talking to you. I hope your health continues, and thanks again for making time today.
Paul, I look at you all the time, and you're still the best there is out there. I was you know what? I would have never thought that when I was calling you up and chewing your ass out on the radio, and back in the 80s.
Yep, yeah. I got a few of those from you.
Hey, listen, Wanda was here this weekend.
Oh my goodness!
She spent the weekend with me. She spent the weekend with me, and she said, "Yeah," so I remember taking the phone out of your hand and talking to Mr. Finebaum.
Well, I don't mean to go old school, but I have to because we have to go to a break. But the worst chewing I ever got wasn't from you, but it was from your wife Sue.
Well, I think you got Sue and Wanda, my child, mixed up, but it doesn't make any difference.
Well, they did me well. Let me phrase this differently. They took turns, and I didn't have much left when it was all over.
Hey, look, you have stood the test of time, and that's the greatest test of all. And I have not seen anybody on television that is beloved as you are across the nation, or my nation, where we live down here now. But I hear you getting calls from California and Oregon and Texas and all over the dang United States. And you keep on keeping on.
Thank you, Coach.
And enjoy every damn minute of it.
I will. And
so we don't know when the next one,
you're
might
right.
be your last one.
Thank you for that, Coach. I will talk to you very soon. Well, what a memorable conversation with Coach Dye. Well, we're done. It's been a very memorable show as well. The Monday after, we will continue doing this tomorrow, and we hope you will join us then. Have a great evening. Man, oh man, do we have a lot to talk about. We're only here for 4 hours. We may need to extend that just a little bit.
Dabo will never stop complaining.
That's
low-hanging fruit or truth.
I mean, Dabo is somebody just needs to give Dabo a pacifier and send him to timeout until the end of the college football season. I'm really getting sick of his whining.
That's what he said. He said,
well, Muschamp said, and by the way, I want to thank my administration for so screwing up all the statements about my future that I'm able to slip in here for at least another year until the buyout goes down.
Yeah, it just seems like poor journalism all around, not, double checking.
Hannah, I mean, I know you're fairly new out of college, but poor journalism all around is the standard these days.
Yeah.
What do you do, Paul, for a situation like this then?
Why does Auburn always seem like they screw it up?
Because they love Auburn so much. They think they know what's best for Auburn.
It's not over, and Saban is not out.
But have we not owned the championship?
Well, we're not using past tense here to keep. We're talking about present and future, not past.
I think I would love for Lane to come. We're pretty good friends, and he knows the SEC, better being under Saban and. At Tennessee, and I just think he'd be a great fit. It was, my pick for him, and I was kind of hoping Rex Ryan might have had a chance too.
He is a good guy. I know Rex. Rex would be really. Maybe Rex will come as a coordinator.
And you go out there and you play back and forth. You play back and forth. You play back and forth. When the zeros are on the damn clock, guess what that means? Game over. 48-45. 48 points. 48 points. That's damn near half 100.
I caught the man out of his arm. I said, "Mister, why am I got to eat these moon pies?" He said, "Because we're going to score so many points on you, Gamecocks, your rear end is going to go into an eclipse."